The town of Berlin. Country charm at the center of Connecticut.
Hello, everyone. We like to call this meeting to order. This is obviously our annual budget meeting, and we'll look to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. Kate, roll call.
Councilor Campanelli? Here. Councilor Evans?
Here.
Mayor Kaczynski?
Here.
Councilor Luddy?
Here.
Councilor Paynessa?
Here.
Councilor Rochette? Here. Councilor Rosso?
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Kate. Moving on, that was also we'll use that as also the introduction of our budget committee, okay, which is our entire town council. So we're all present for you this evening. What we're going to do now, I'm just going to read. I know you probably have the handout, but I'm just going to read through the rules and procedures for the public hearing tonight. So after the presentations, there'll be the audience of citizens. The sign-up sheet is in front here. If you haven't already done it by the town clerk, you don't have to sign up. We will call on you after. I will recognize the people who signed up first. After that, citizens that have not signed up should raise their hands and will be recognized by myself. Once you have been recognized by the mayor, please step up to the microphone. The microphone's up in front here. I think, yeah, right, just two here, end of each aisle. And for the record, please, you'll have to state your name and address for the record. Please keep your remarks brief and to the point. Citizens who wish to speak for a second time should wait until everyone has had an opportunity to speak once. And please speak only on the proposed budget, if you would. Appreciate everyone coming tonight, and your input on the budget is very important to us. This is our second meeting. We had a first meeting last week. We had a nice turnout, a smaller group, but we had some good information both ways. So that was successful, and I certainly appreciate tonight everyone being here. I just want to mention that the Budget Committee, all of us here on the Town Council, has worked diligently for several weeks to prioritize the town manager's proposed budget. The major town departments have had the opportunity to explain their strategies for this budget and future budgets. This has been an extremely challenging budget session, given the continuing economic turmoil facing Connecticut, with state budget deficits projected in the next fiscal year, 2018. There continues to be a high level of uncertainty regarding state grants as well. Overall, future reliance on state grants funding remains uncertain. A major driver for this budget for our town is the continued impact of additional principal and interest payments related to the Berlin High School project. Other drivers include debt service payments on critical bonded debt for fire protection, vehicles, police radio infrastructure replacement, road repair, bridge replacements, and the completion of some other school repairs. Bonds and short-term notes related to these projects either have been added or are anticipated to be added with debt service payments and impacting fiscal year 2018. So, we worked very diligently. We have so far, remember, this is a proposed budget. We still have about another week to work on it. We have a town council meeting next Tuesday where we can discuss this further, which would be certainly another audience of citizens if anyone wants to come back and visit with us. And then Wednesday, we would take the vote on the final budget, which would be then sent to referendum, which is April 25th. So we still have plenty of time for discussion, and tonight we'll get into the details. I'm going to just let our budget chair, Dave Evans, make a few remarks, and then we'll get on to Jack Healy and the town side of the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to all of you. There's three things that I invited each of our department heads and I would say our elected boards, both our police commission as well as our Board of Education. As they came and presented to me their budgets, I had some preliminary meetings with all of them and then with the budget committee. And the first thing I asked them would talk to us as a budget committee about those items that the town manager may have taken out of their budgets. That way we'd have as a committee a full picture of their individual interests and needs for their particular locations, which developed a lot of interesting input, which greatly appreciated. There may have been one or two adds back to the budgets based on those discussions, so I do appreciate that initial look. Second of all, I asked that they would present to us the efficiencies and effective implementation of the budgets that they were given and that they utilized in the past year. Again, brought forth a number of interesting and helpful insight into their operations and to some degree the challenges that they're facing. Lastly, I invited each of them to present to me what they would do to work with less of an increase, or in some cases within the town it was they had already come to me with a lower budget than the previous year, and they kind of looked at me twice when they said, "You want me to come forth with something that would be even less?" And I said, "Yes, we need to all take a look at what are the opportunities out there." And so that was the process that we followed. That then led to discussions over several weeks. When we finished up those discussions, we had a list. This list was created as what I call a budget dashboard that is available on the finance page of the town's website. So you can look at the individual specific items that were taken away or added back in for some specific details. I know looking at you can certainly go through the budget handout and look at the columns there between the department head or the town manager approved and what the council has approved to this point. But that's available to everyone to take a look at, and that also gives you an indication. You could even, I'll have to double check with the finance director, but I believe it was made in Excel form, so if you wanted to adjust some numbers there and put forth some information to us as a council, individually or collectively, you're welcome to do so, and I invite that and would welcome that. With that, I think I'll pass on now to talk about the overall budget. Our temporary town manager, Jack Healy. If there's any other introductory remarks, I'll let the mayor do that at this point. But at this point, we're going to move to Mr. Healy. Is there anything else, Mr. Mayor? Okay. All right, so I'll invite up the town manager and we'll proceed with the agenda as it's laid out.
Good evening. As Dave said, I'm Jack Healy. I'm your temporary town manager. I have about 20 slides, and we'll go through the slides to highlight any key points in the budget. We'll try to go through, be brief with these comments, and we're just going to hit the highlights. Most of the information that's included in the slides you have in the budget package. Okay, the first slide, it just gives you a breakdown of the proposed budget. As you can see there, the Board of Education portion of the budget is about $45,991,559. The town side is about $39,390,019, about 46% of the budget. There are some of the Board of Ed components in the town side, Departments 59 and 61, and those are shared. Those are shared expenses, including some our nurses and some of the custodial services. On the revenue side, we generate revenue through taxes, and the grand list is what we base the taxes on. Each year, the assessor maintains, updates, and continually reviews the records for all real estate, personal property, and automotive taxes for the Berlin's grand list. He compiles a list and computes its value as of January 31st every year. The grand list is the basis for computing Berlin's current revenue and resulting mill rate. The grand list grew about 0.83% this year, so it added about $559,000 of additional revenue to our budget as of this year. A breakdown of the town revenue. As you can see, taxes are about 83% of the revenue generated by the town. And that's the importance of the grand list. As the grand list grows, that helps us support the programs that both the Board of Ed and the town provides to you. We get about another 8% in school grants, including ECS grants that come into this town and distributed to the school for their programs. We have a fund balance that each year we assign part of the fund balance to contribute to the funding of each of our programs. We have to make sure that we maintain a certain fund balance to make sure the credit rating of the town stays in a good place. We also, for our services, as many of you know, for permits, licenses, and other services the town provides, we charge for certain fees. We have a revenue committee on the town, and we review these fees each year to make sure that they're appropriate and in line with other towns. That generates about another 4% of our budget. We also get other grants through economic development, road grants, bridges, things like that, and that contributes about 1.4% to the budget. And lastly, there's transfers. This particular one goes to the Water Control Commission. They transfer and pay for certain things to the town, and that's about less than 1%. Each year, we have a breakdown of our expenditures. And as you can see, there's a breakdown. The Board of Ed is 54% of the expenditures by the town. General government takes about 7%. General government is all the services. If you come to the town hall, it's the town manager, the finance department, all the services you get as you come into the town hall. Community development, that's planning and zoning, economic development, inlands, wetlands, and some of our planning agencies and the commissions. They contribute about 1% of our expenditures. Public safety, which is the fire, police, ambulance, animal control, that takes about almost 10% of our budget each year. Physical services takes another 9%. Physical services would be public works, road, highway, and the town garage and our equipment. Health and human services, which consists of the VNA, health department, community services, and homemaking. That's another 3.3% of the budget. Debt service is what we pay on our bonds and our debt each year. And then lastly is transfers, help paying down some of the principal on the debt. That's a transfer. As we're going to, in a future slide, we're going to talk about how we went through the budget and what we removed at each stage of the budget session. But there were priorities as we went through and certain things that we were trying to prioritize and to keep in the budget. The first is school safety and security, and included in the town budget this year is funding for lockers at McGee Middle School and additional security cameras at the schools. On the public safety side, we continue to fund roadway and bridge project improvements, a police radio system replacement, fire protection equipment, including SCBA's, and repairs to the Railroad Pond Dam. The DEP has a program where each year they go out and they assess certain dams in the state. The Railroad Pond Dam is one that was assessed. It is in need of repair, and we are now entering into a program with the DEP to repair the dam. As the mayor described, there's a process for us to go through the budget each year. The initial process is where each department submits their request, and you can see that in the first column, and those requests came to a total of $93 million. At that point, the town manager goes through and evaluates those requests. And goes through and removes certain parts of the request and makes certain cuts. That budget is then, by March 1st, passed on to the town council for their review, and they can, at that point, either add things back in or make further cuts into the budget based on their review. Please note, number one, part of the removal from one of the things that was cut, we had originally budgeted for the state, Governor Malloy's budget, And at that point, we were looking at $2.4 million of teachers' pension contributions going to the town side of the budget. And at some point, the council made the assumption that they're just not going to include anything from the governor's budget, as at this point, they haven't solidified it, and so it's hard to make any decisions based on that information. The first layer of budget review is the town manager. As you can see, the original department request for $93.2 million. The town manager review removed $1.6 million of capital items, $1.3 million of Board of Ed capital and site improvements, about $500,000 from various town operational accounts, and then a BOE adjustment we added back in to the Board of Ed of about $250,000 for the security cameras and the McGee lockers. So the total reductions coming from the town manager review was about $3.1 million. Included in those reductions were computers, professional development, garage equipment, some new staff, cars and trucks, capital work for sidewalks and flood control, golf course equipment, mowers, and school capital. On March 1st, the town manager's budget gets passed on to the town council. The town council went through each department and reviewed their request. As David said, they were asked to justify what their activities are to show efficiencies. They also were asked if the town manager made certain cuts that they wanted and they wanted added back in, they were to tell the council what they needed. After the town council's review, they made additional cuts into the budget, including the teacher's pension contribution, which I described was from the governor's budget, capital equipment for about $700,000, various operational accounts, they took it down another $130,000. Removed some salaries and fringes of about $70,000. They asked the Board of Education for another $1.4 million in cuts, and then they added back in about $91,000 into site and buildings in Department 61. So their total reductions were $4.7 million. The town council proposed budget comes to $85,382,000. This chart, what it is it gives you a comparison based on mill rate of certain parts of our budget compared to 2017 budget or last year's budget. If you look down, you see where wages from the Board of Education incurs an increase of about $900,000. Effect on the mill rate is about 0.41. The town pension savings is about $750,000 or 0.34 added to the mill rate. Debt service about $723,000 added about 0.33 to the mill rate. Fringe benefits for the Board of Ed 0.22. $490,000 adding about 0.22 to the mill rate. Debt service to the town $413,000 adding 0.19 to the mill rate. Wages in the town $200,000 adding another 0.09 to the mill rate. Fringe benefits of the town, $76,000, adding about 0.03 to the mill rate. And then things that were removed were capital items reduced year over year. In other words, our capital items from 2017 to 2018, they're less in 2018 than they were in 2017, and therefore the mill rate change actually reduces the increase in the mill rate by 0.11. Capital items from the town, again, reduced year to year of $434,000. So that impact is, it reduces the mill rate increase by 0.20. And the Board of Ed operations, another $750,000, which reduces the mill rate increase by 0.34. The impact of major expenditure changes comes to 0.97 on the mill rate. With other expenditure changes, it added another 0.02 to the mill rate. The decrease in non-tax revenues, the revenue sharing, what the assumption is that the revenue sharing from the state of Connecticut will remain the same, stays flat. So therefore, it was figured at 0.18. And then the grand list increase, which we described in the first slide, that has obviously that adds to the taxable income to the town. So that has that reduces the mill rate change. So we end up with a mill rate change of 0.87. As the mayor described, the town has a significant debt servicing currently. We currently have $85.5 million in bonds outstanding. The length of those bonds vary. Generally, they're 20-year bonds, but we normally pay those off ahead of time to reduce the interest that we pay. Of the $85.5 million, the majority of it goes to the high school project, construction project. Some of it goes to the McGee School upgrade, school roof projects that we've had in the past, and in Pistol Creek. The bonds were issued in 2011, 13, 14, 15, 16, and some of the approximately about $6 million is maturing in 2022. An additional $12 million is maturing in 2027. We also issue notes, short-term notes. Those are used for projects such as the business continuity project, which is disaster recovery for the town hall. Bridge and sidewalk repair. We have a continuous bridge and sidewalk repair program. We have bridges lined up for the next, over the next 3 or 4 years. Again, that's based on ratings by the state DOT. We do road improvements. We're trying to do about 5.5 miles of road each year, and then we turn roads over about every 15 or 20 years, which meets the design standards. Some of this goes toward the high school tennis and basketball courts, which will be finished this spring. And the last, we installed a generator which operates the entire high school at the Berlin High School. These are short-term, and we renew those every 6 months, and we pay them off within 5 years. In the upcoming year, we will be going out for additional bonding in May, and that bonding will include police radio. We have to upgrade the police radio system for about $1.8 million. Road improvement, again, as I described, we try to redo about 5.5 miles of roads annually. Bridge repairs, we have several bridges that we are working on. Currently, we're on Farmington Avenue Bridge. We're looking at the Burnham Street Bridge, the High Street Bridge, and Spruce Road Bridge. It also is for the SCBA. The fire department has to upgrade their FCBA's equipment. So they put in for about $500,000 for that, and the Hubbard School roof, which was completed. Short-term notes, currently there's a rollover about $1.4 million of existing notes, which will be paid off over the next 5 years. It's not permanently bonded to save on the interest. There's anticipation of another $1.5 million in notes for bridge work in May of 18 to continue those bridges that I described previously. We're looking at issuing another $980,000 for short-term notes for improvements at Scalise Field, the Griswold School parking lot. We've taken a look at all the parking lots that the town owns, and we've come up with a 10-year program where over each year, we'll be doing one of the school parking lots and one of the town parking lots, so that you don't do those all in 1 year, you do them over a 10-year period. We have the ongoing business continuity. It's for disaster recovery at the town hall to make sure in case there is a major issue at the town hall disaster that we're able to continue to do the town business. And the last is to upgrade the infield at Zipadelli Field. This graph illustrates the debt service looking over the last about 10 years and where the majority of debt is attributable to. As you see, the purple part of the graph is what is the town part, which would be roads, bridges, roofs, in various town projects and equipment, including fire equipment and police equipment. The red portion of the graph is attributed to the school projects, and as you see, it's gone up, but the majority of that is ascribed to the construction of the high school. For those of us who've been doing the budget now for several months, we've become very familiar with this graph, and it's one that I know Dave pulls it out every time we look at it and say, okay, how do we fund all the things we need to do without increasing much more debt and not increasing taxes to our residents? If you look at this graph, it illustrates what's coming due over the next couple of years, and at this point, the bonds on the school project are fully coming due, and we have to start paying those. So what you see is this, over the next 2 or 3 years, is this uptick in payments that it's time to start paying for the school and other projects. Once we get past fiscal year 20, you see it starts to go down, and that allows us to do additional funding on different projects, and the budget will not have to continue to incur the cost of those bonds. And so you see that there's a peak in year 2020, and then it starts to decrease after that point. Again, we in our planning, we're working on a 10-year strategic plan, and we've taken this into account in everything that we're trying to plan. We're working to get over this hump, and after that, start to layer in projects, road projects, bridge projects, and other air quality projects within our buildings and schools. We do have a fund balance, and the town of Berlin's in a good position in its fund balance. It's in the range that's supposed to be. The desirable range is 11 to 15%, and I think right now we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 12.5 to 13% of our. So our fund balance is in a good position. A certain amount of that fund balance each year is assigned to the budget. And what we show here is how much is assigned, is in the blue, budgeted, and then how much we actually spend of that fund balance annually. And you can see over the last couple of years, in 2013-14, they spent about $126,000. It went up a little bit in 2014-15 to $560,000. The following year went down, and none of it was expended. So that money, the town's done a good job as far as they budget the money, but they haven't spent the fund balance, and they keep a healthy fund balance. There's an unassigned portion of the fund balance, and as you can see, it's steadily increased to the point where at this point, in fiscal year 2015-16, the unassigned fund balance was at about $11,157,000, or 13.86% of the budget. Again, the unassigned fund balance target is 11 to 15% of the total budget, and that plays a role in the interest rates and bonding costs that the town incurs. If you have a healthy fund balance, you have a good credit rating, it's like anybody, like all of us at home, the better credit rating you have, the less you have to spend on interest when you go to borrow money. So this is we're in a good position with where we are at this point. Now this graph doesn't pertain to everybody in the room, but those who live within the Berlin Water Company sewer and water district. This is what we're planning on our budget for this year, and you can see some of our expenses there. I'll hit the highlights. We typically have to spend money because all the wastewater goes to the Mattabesett district, and so annually we spend about $2 million to the Mattabesett district for that flow. We're anticipating about $1.2 million in capital expenses. We're investing heavily into pump stations because our pump stations have not been upgraded in several years, so we're working on several of the pump stations to get them up to speed, improve their efficiency, and how we're able to meter the sewage flow. Salaries and fringe benefits come to about $781,000. On the water side, we have wells within town that can produce up to about 1 million gallons of water. We currently are not able to do that. We've had some operational problems. But as a backup, we also purchase water from New Britain and from Cromwell. So in the last year, we purchased about $750,000 worth of water from New Britain and Cromwell. We're also updating the transmission lines for the water distribution throughout the system. You have to reinvest. Over time, if you don't carefully monitor your water lines, they do develop leaks, and so you end up producing more water or buying more water than you're actually selling. So we want to make sure that our pipes are efficient, are in good condition. They also start to build up deposits on the inside of the pipe, and it decreases the pressure. So in order to make sure that we have proper service, we are currently looking into having those pipes cambered and having those relined. Those are the high points of the Water Commission. So, in summary, the budget was developed to maintain existing services. We tried to go through and make several critical investments. The town manager and the town council prioritized investments, trying to, understanding, if you remember that chart that we looked at, that the bonding costs and the expense of the town was going to go up for the next several years, but we wanted to make sure that certain projects doing with public safety, school safety were still funded. So they prioritized certain investments. They also wanted to make sure that they made necessary contributions to the pension fund. We need to make sure the pension fund is properly funded. So for those people who retire, there's monies there for them to retire and for the town to pay those pensions. They also, the town council made the decision to exclude the impact of the governor's budget proposal. Several of us have gone and met with several of our representatives. We've gone to Hartford and talked with them, trying to get an understanding about what they see coming in the state's budget. We didn't get a clear picture, but we were told that it's going to be a while, and they're still in Hartford. They're still working through it. So town council made a decision that, based on the uncertainty, that they would not include any of the impact from the governor's budget, and we would see how that came later on. And we would continue to monitor the state budget activity and remain in contact with our state elected officials. All that said, the mill rate based on this budget would be 31.68. What does that mean? Kevin Delaney, our finance director, put this slide together based on last year's mill rate and this year's mill rate, assuming that someone had a house with a market value of $250,000, assessed value of 70%, $175,000, and you can see from 1 year 30.81 mill rate and a 31.68 mill rate. The tax bill in 2017 would be $5,392. With the proposed budget as it stands, the tax bill would be $5,541, an increase of about 2.8%. The change is $152, and Kevin broke it down to monthly and weekly. So, my last slide just says April 25th is the budget referendum, and please come out and vote.
Thank you, Jack. Next, we have Matt Tenza, Board of Education presentation.
Thanks, Mark. So our budget process also started months ago. We started in December with this process. It's a long and lengthy process, and like the town council, the entire Board of Education was involved. There we go. Okay. This first slide indicates that what we asked the superintendent's office to provide us with was a status quo budget. What exactly does that mean? That means we asked for a budget that only addressed the contractual obligations to the school system. It didn't include any additional programming, and it didn't look for any reductions in services along the way. This slide would indicate the major expense categories along the way. So the overall proposed budget is $43.9 million, right? This is I'm a picture person, so this is a pictorial version of this, exactly the same data, but as you can see, most of our budget is driven by certified salaries, non-certified salaries, and benefits. About 80+% of our budget is driven by salaries and benefits. In the proposed budget, it would be 81.99%, essentially 82%. This is a breakout of our budget relative to special education. We show this slide simply so that you as the public can see that about 21% of our overall budget is for special education services. Special education is a pretty good section of our budget, and also many of the areas are state mandated, so they are a place that we really can't look to for service reductions. And also our special education group, I think I saw Linda here someplace, they do a great job with what we do for the students of Berlin here. So that's information I think you'll find along here. I'm going to provide you more information than you've had in the past. Athletics, important here in Berlin, shows that we spend about little over $800,000 for our athletic group from middle school all the way through grade 12. So, extracurricular activities. We wanted to show this slide simply because extracurricular activities now have become just as important as academics and sports for those students who are going to go on to college and university. I know personal experiences when you go through, that's one of the biggest things on the application now. So this is just an idea of what we spend for extracurriculars and what we are also offering. I think that's important for you to see. This is elementary school. Those stipends are actually divided, if you divide them by 3, that's essentially what it is per school. It's not, so if you take that $5,500 divided by 3, that's what is divided out amongst the elementary schools. The $11,000 and changes for the middle school. And here is what we're looking at the high school, and a pretty comprehensive list of activities that are available to our students today. Also in here is the Upbeat program. You'll see that we pay for the Upbeat director, and also the total for this extracurriculars from the elementary schools all the way through high school is $125,000, 0.3% of our budget. This slide comes from the state of Connecticut. This is the state's ranking of wealth for the state of Connecticut. Berlin ranks 65th in the year 2015-16. We don't have the 16 and 17 data completely yet, but this is from the state. We rank 65th. And our expenditure per pupil for the same year is 108th. So this information is important twofold. A, is it does show that Berlin has an ability to pay, but also when we have contractual negotiations, mediators use this information to help determine what our contract agreement is going to be. So it is measured in more than just informational slides. So district reference group. The next few slides are going to talk about a district reference group. This is a way that we can compare our district to other districts of equal size, income, education, and basic structure. So we are in DIRG, District Reference Group D. And you can see Berlin, in a group of 24, falls right in the middle relative to per pupil expense. This is where Berlin ranks relative to some of our surrounding towns. And often we receive questions as, why are we not in the same comparison to some of these towns? And while I wouldn't say that dollars are the end all, certainly funding helps support services, which helps support our students. This is the last 4 years of the Board of Education's proposed and adopted budgets. In 2014-15, we received an increase to our budget of $567,000 and a reduction from the original request of $631,000. In 2015, you can see we received an increase of $612,000 with a reduction to our original request of $562,000. Last year, we received $506,000 of an increase with a reduction of $1,094,000. And this year, as it stands right now, we have a tentative approval of $564,792 with a reduction of $1.4 million. At this point in time, Superintendent Irwin and his staff have done a very good job over the last couple of years, incorporating the reductions without having a real visible impact on our students. A really good example of that is right now we have about $800,000 of salaries that are in our grants that our grants are full. There's no place that we don't have any more chess moves, if you will. Our king is in the corner and we're out of moves. So at this point, any reductions that we have to take will have an impact on our system as you see it today, and they'll be difficult cuts. The purpose of this slide is to simply show, I said earlier that salaries and benefits drive our budget. It's 80%. And this is over the last 4 years. You can see that it remains at the 80% mark, and right this year it goes up to 81.9, and that is a function of our contractual agreements that are in and the increases that go with those. But it's just an example that we've been able to maintain that salaries and benefits, which is the driver, we've been able to keep pretty constant over time. You heard Mr. Healy mention that we put an increase into our budget from the original proposal. This is what made that up. We have $200,000 for Chromebooks and technologies. We were able to fund a couple of years ago through grants the ability to now provide one-to-one technology from grades 3 through 12, and that would be with Chromebooks. At this point, a lot of that equipment now is in the process that we need to replace it in order to keep the one-to-one technology available for our students with today's learning. I think that's very important. So we felt that was important enough that we wanted to add that to our operating budget. The $45,000 was also added in, but has since been moved over to Department 61 by the Budget Committee. So this would come out of our budget. And then last, the $6,600 for exercise equipment at McGee. The wellness center that's there at McGee was funded solely by a grant, and it is now an integral part of everyday curriculum for the middle school. And we have some equipment there that does need to be replaced. We have some exercise equipment that is no longer functional or safe, and it's up for replacement. This is a list of items that did not make the budget request from the superintendent to the town council through the Board of Ed. The first thing on there is the Effective School Solutions, the ESS program. That is a program that was funded last year through grant money and money that wasn't spent towards the end of the year. We were able to implement this program. We think it's a very valuable program, but because it was not part of last year's budget, we did not make it part of this year's budget. Because if you remember, I asked for a budget to be status quo, and this was something that was added at the end of last year. And then the rest of the items you'll see, most of them are support services for our students. It is essentially, these are people. Until you get to the bottom where you see uniforms Last year, we eliminated the replacement of uniforms for our athletic teams, and we have done exactly the same this year. And you'll see an athletic trainer. Our athletic director proposed that we bring a full-time athletic trainer onto staff. That net increase would be the difference between what we are paying under contract services versus having our own person on staff. The advantages of that would be that we believe we would be able to serve more students with athletic training services, but at this time we did not include it in our budget. This slide is an indication of what's happening with our grants along the way. As you can see, they continue to go down, which makes it's kind of a two-pronged effect, if you will. As expenses go and grants are coming down, we lose that ability to fund some of our programs, for example, the technology that we've been able to do in the past, especially now considering that we have, again, about a little over $800,000 in salaries in those grants now. We'll call this this is our brag slide. This came out just recently in February, and this is an indication of where Berlin now falls relative to academic accountability within our district reference group. We're number 6. We're quite proud of that, and we expect to continue to show good student achievement. This also shows our growth. On the left would be growth in the ELA side, English Language Arts. You can see that we're growing at percent change is 8.5%, and on the other side is math, which is at 4.3%. So again, we continue to see improvement, which is one of our main goals. So this is a list of potential reduction areas. This should look familiar to people who may have received a letter in the mail. When we look at our budget and what we need to do to reduce $1.4 million, it's really all-encompassing. We need to look at all areas, and it's going to have an effect on people. So department heads at the high school leading to reduction of full-time teachers, department heads at the middle school, team leaders at the elementary grade, K-12 coordinators in art, music, and physical education, technology integration specialists leading to loss of staff, consolidation of library and media specialists. I can go through the whole list, you can read it for yourself, but as you can see, it reaches all parts of our district. The one thing that I will put a spotlight on, because it does not impact this year's budget, is the last item, and that is the discussion for planning of closing or reconfiguring the existing elementary school. I'll put it out there right now. Last night we voted to look at restructuring, perhaps the advantage of restructuring the elementary schools in general. We're not talking about closing. We're looking at what the advantages or disadvantages are of restructuring our elementary schools as a whole, to see if there's efficiencies and also academic advantage to our students. So it's not for this budget year. It's a long-term conversation, but we would be irresponsible if we didn't look at all avenues for the future. That's the end of the Board of Ed's side.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Jack, for that. So we'll start our questions. So just to, I know it was touched on, but I wanted to make it clear, we decided at this point, at least, not to add the school, the governor's proposed cuts in. Those, I believe, total around $5 million. That would include cuts to municipal aid, to school funding, and the teacher pension payment. So this budget, we took into account what the state has given us in past years. We took into account, obviously, our budget process in the town. So this is our town budget as it would be in any other year. So we're at a 0.87% Mill rate increase as it sits right now, 0.51% of that is our payment to our debt, because as you saw, our debt has gone up in the last couple years, and we're obviously paying for this beautiful school, which is great. We needed it, but we have to pay for it now. And we had some other costs as far as fire equipment, police equipment, and roads, and a couple other repairs to our schools. We tried the best we can to get a read from Hartford, met with our representatives, Speaker Osimowitz, a couple other of our legislators, to try and get a read on what could possibly happen. I think as we all are aware, no one really knows where that's going to shake out. It sounds like it will not be as bad for Berlin as what came out of the governor's proposal, the $5 million or so, which would be catastrophic, which would probably equate to about an 18% tax increase if that all went through. Very hard to tolerate that in 1 year. I don't know where we would come up with that other than to increase taxes. I mean, we've already cut everything to the bone on the town side and the school side, so it would be very, very difficult. We hope that does not happen, but we don't know. We really don't know. It sounds like from our representatives that's not going to happen. It sounds like there's going to be some type of cuts. They obviously have not decided yet. I think we've seen some proposals, how they're going to raise revenue to cover the $1.7 billion state deficit that we're all facing as residents in Connecticut. They're talking about tolls, they're talking about sales taxes, they're talking about a lot of things. But there's been no real definitive answer on that. Their session ends, I believe, June 7th. We hope we would have an answer by then, but possibly from our representatives, it could go on into the summer or even to the fall before we might have an answer. So with that, it just didn't make any sense to myself and to the council to just pick a number and figure that in our budget. We have no clue what that number will be unless we're fortune teller. So we went through, and obviously we have a charter we have to fulfill, and we have a referendum on April 25th that has to be voted on. So we went forward not knowing what will happen with the state. So it could be not as bad. It sounds like that's going to be the case. But whether that means $1 million from state aid, $2 million, $3 million, $500,000 cut from our aid, we don't know. So that's what we're faced with. Hence, we tried to be as reasonable to fund the services that our people need, that our students need, and tried to be as reasonable with a tax increase as we could. Less than $1 million right now as it stands. A lot of people in this town suffer from, they're on fixed incomes, they suffer from paying any of their bills, and any increase in their taxes is difficult for many people. So we have to take everybody into account when we looked at this budget, and we did. We tried to be as reasonable and as fair as possible up to this point. Again, not knowing the future. Very difficult to plan a town government not knowing that. So that's where we stand right now. Again, we have a week. We're still talking about this. We look forward now to your input. So let's get to it. We'll start with our list, and then after we get through the list, please raise your hands and come on up. We really welcome this input from all of you. So the first name is, I'm sorry, I'll probably kill some of your names. I apologize. Claudine Lavoie is our first up. Come on up to the mic that's closest to you. Please state your name and address. Number one. That's great.
I know, the
Lucky,
go first.
Lucky you.
Woohoo! Okay. Board of Ed members, Town Council, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm here in support of the library media specialists, which are on the cut list. I have the privilege of holding this position in West Hartford, and prior to that, I served this community at Willard School for several years. Teaching children in both areas gives me the capability, the perspective of demonstrating the need for library media specialists in each of our schools. I respectfully ask you to consider and support this area which impacts every student every day. Library media specialists are certified teachers. They work directly with students for developing research skills in kindergarten all the way up through high school. They help distinguish between accurate and inaccurate information, an essential component in research, especially today with our fake news media. Being good stewards of our technology resources, we work closely with classroom teachers to bring meaningful integration of technology. We allow students to become fluid in technology competencies. We apply them across devices, as you saw with the one-to-one Chromebooks, as well as master content in our global society. Through each of these, we are inspiring readers along the way, producing and help provide texts for learners and their interests. There are thousands of materials that are circulated every year in your libraries, and certified library media specialists are able to select these just right books for students based on content and interest. Hundreds of hours of teaching occur every year. Library media specialists teach library skills, research, and work closely with classroom teachers to integrate skills across the curriculum. Every student in the elementary level is touched. Library media specialists teach every class every week, and they're provided support and curriculum during the class and in their regular classrooms. Classroom teachers are supported, and library media specialists maintain close relationships with teachers, collaborate with every teacher to meet each learner's unique needs. Now more than ever, there's a critical need for library media specialists to prepare students for the demands of the 21st century. This is the role of the library media specialists of Berlin. They have eagerly embraced this to support all learners in Berlin. They do this work for every child, every single day. I know this is a very difficult budget, very difficult time, but please consider keeping library media specialists in every school. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Mamie Little, next up, number 2. Already headed up, thank you.
20 years ago, when my husband and I were searching for a community in which to raise our family, we chose Berlin. It was vitally important to us to find a town that reflected the very core of our values. The absolute top on our list of criteria was choosing a community with an exemplary school system. We had our sights set on being in a town whose governing body supported its education system with unwavering commitment and determination. My husband and I were making a decision that would, in part, form the pathway for our family and what our children's future would be. Where we set down roots would impact our children's futures. We found what we were looking for in Berlin. This community reflected the values we were seeking to instill in our 3 children. Most importantly, Berlin possessed a school system superior to the surrounding towns. People who valued education had confidence in our town government that no matter what the local, state, or national fiscal worlds threatened, Berlin would do right by its children. Berlin would put the education of its children first. Berlin would do right. Berlin would ensure that the quality education was provided for each child in the district, and we were correct. For many years, our town government did just that. Our schools consistently remained at the forefront of curriculum, resources, innovations, technology, and quality education for students in pre-kindergarten through grade 12. Now that commitment is fading. The list of possible cuts published in last week's newspaper and included in the letter sent to Berlin Homes last week makes it clear that we live in difficult times. But it also makes clear that we live in a town that does not put our children first. My children benefited tremendously from a strong education system, from dedicated educators, from the resources those educators needed to get the job done, and done exceedingly well. All 3 of my children are now successful young adults with strong careers. They are out in the world doing good work. The whole notion of a village raising a child, there is something to that. My husband and I are forever grateful for the village of incredibly dedicated educators who are integral parts of their lives. Our children's excellent foundation was in this school system. The families with children currently in the school system and the families whose children have not yet arrived on the Hubbard, Griswold, and Willard doorsteps should be worried. They should be very, very worried. The published chopping block does not bode well for the children of our town. Parents, indeed all residents, need to pay close attention to what that published list implies and have full awareness that by no means is the published list necessarily even a complete list. There actually may be more cuts than the possibilities published. These cuts to staff, programs, and resources will be the undoing of excellence. Residents need to know that those few lines of print in the newspaper do not even come close to conveying the real-life impact that the cuts will make in the lives and in the education of students. Among the impossible cuts, the list includes the disaster of increasing class sizes so that classroom teacher positions can be eliminated. Think about that. Really think about that. The more students, the less impact a teacher has on the education of each child. Something has got to give in the rich experience of learning when quality is watered down due to the ratio of students to teacher being stretched way too thin. It is an undeniable truth that smaller class sizes lead to greater learning. We have the most dedicated team of educators in preschool through grade 12, working with our town's children every single day. Their drive is extraordinary, but you cannot get blood from a stone. They cannot be stretched as thin as the words on the list of cuts want them to be stretched. Our town's children will pay the price. Children's acquisition of knowledge will be stunted, their skills weakened, their progress slowed, and I dare say their test scores will decline. I am not only a tax-paying resident of Berlin, I am a teacher at Willard School. I've taught for 27 years in this town. I've taught first, second, third grades, and have been a reading teacher. I am now the library media specialist at Willard. I have loved all my positions within the school, but what a fabulous place I currently have to work in, and what an extraordinary job I am currently blessed to hold. Elementary children come to the library to research ideas, to create new ideas, to grow as human beings through the written word of a story. They come to be excited about learning in a place that honors their curiosity. There's probably the misconception, especially among adults who have not been in a school in some time, that my job as a library media specialist, I simply check out books. That is far from the truth of what I do. The role of the library has vastly changed since most of us here were in school. The library supports the daily work of classroom teachers. What students are experiencing and learning in classrooms all across our town, our school libraries are right there reinforcing that learning and stretching that learning for the students even farther. We give students an integrated experience between the classroom, oftentimes incorporating technology, and the greater world beyond our school walls. The proposed budget cuts list, quote, the consolidation of library media specialists, unquote. This line of print is not specific, but it is real, with very significant implications for elementary students. I am not here with the goal of keeping my job from being consolidated or cut. I am here because a world without elementary school libraries, is one I cannot begin to wrap my head around. I caution parents and community members to remember that the library is not simply checking out books. A library opens minds, it inspires. It gives our children an opportunity to explore literature, to stretch their learning, to extend their learning independently, beyond the classroom, to research, to create new ideas, to learn from old ideas, to know the world. This current budget crisis cannot include a choice between technology education and library media education. Both are of equal, balanced, interwoven, and complementary importance. Technology as a learning tool is optimized when creative, skilled, forward-thinking students use 21st century tools, 21st century skills to move their learning forward. This happens in conjunction with research work. Residents who do not have children currently in elementary schools may be baffled by the idea of research in primary grades. Let me assure you that research, learning about the world in which we live, begins right there in literacy, science, and social studies lessons in our kindergarten classes and in the library. I am asking both as a teacher and a parent that we guard our elementary libraries as if the futures of our 21st century children depend on it, because they do. To those in the community who say the school system has made do with reduced budgets over the years and that we can just do the same again this year, I remind them that with repeated years of budget cuts come the ever-increasing demands of shrinking resources. There's a compounding effect. For many years now, our teachers have struggled to maintain the quality of education presented to our town's children in a time of changing national standards and Common Core curriculum with ever-shrinking financial resources. The Board of Education budget cannot withstand greater and deeper cuts while at the same time maintaining the quality that my own 3 children were fortunate to receive in the past. Resources, staff, and programs have already been stripped down over the years. There is no fat left on the bones. There is nothing left to give without sacrificing the future of our town's children. I reflect back on my husband's and my decision to move to Berlin and entrust the school system with the education of our children. If the negative current budget atmosphere and the lack of support for the school system existed then as it does now, we would not have moved here. We would have taken our tax money and invested in a different town that embraces the education of all its children without hesitation and holds its children as the most valuable asset toward the future. I am thankful for what was then, and I consider my children most fortunate to have grown up here. But I wonder if young parents now, looking to make the same decisions that we did then, will look at Berlin in the same way. Probably not. If these budget cuts to the school system come to fruition, we will not have given families any reason to have trust and faith that we will do right by their kids. We need to attract families to town, not give them a reason to keep looking. We must re-examine and rethink these deep cuts to an already strained education system. Our children cannot pay this price. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Jan Zabrowski? Zagorski, I'm sorry, I'm bad at
Still
handwriting.
Zagorski, even like the last time I...
And name and address just for the
Jan
record.
Zagorski, 63 Grandview Avenue.
Thank you.
Tough act to follow. I am concerned about the drastic reduction in the Board of Education budget this year. My understanding is that we elect our town council members to be responsible for overseeing our town and its total budget. We also elect Board of Ed members to become knowledgeable in that area of education, to work with our superintendent of schools, to continue to move our school system forward. Both of these elected boards are volunteer positions. To expect the town council to understand the details of the many aspects of education, including the laws, how every change affects everything else, the impact of technology on the students, and more, is impossible. To ask the Board of Ed to produce a specific list of cuts, what will happen first, second, third, and how it will impact everything past that, is unreasonable. My feeling is that the current town council would like to make every decision for this town. That is an unreasonable expectation to have without thorough background knowledge of what goes into running a school system. Has any one of the members actually worked in a school? Spent more than a few hours in a school since they graduated? I question why you would want total control. The budget that the council was given allowed for the continuation of the current programs that are in place for our schools. By cutting this budget by $1.4 million, there will be cuts to all areas. Do we know specifically? No, but it will affect every student. Will English or math classes be cut? No. What will be cut are the classes, support, extracurricular activities, sports, and none of the state-mandated classes or courses. The anxiety level of our students has greatly increased. What happens when life skill classes are no longer offered? What happens when extracurricular classes, after-school programs, and such disappear? These may seem like extras, but they may be the very thing that keeps students in school. As a high school coach, during our season, our students must keep their grades up. Maybe that's how we enable them to graduate. Students who love to cook and look forward to middle or high school FCS classes and come to school for that break from their academics, maybe they will be successful in school. We need those extras and support for our kids. I'm sure that many have been following the opioid problem that we have here in town and across the country. Those extra adults that are part of the student lives outside of the classroom may help save some of our kids. There are also added lessons to be taught in school. Technology has allowed us to collect information quickly, but along with that comes responsibility. Teachers need to not only teach technology, but also ways to be safe when using that technology. From the elementary level up, how to determine fact from, once again, fake news, and to evaluate and question what is being written. I'm sure that some of the council members at this point are thinking, that is why we want to know exactly what is being cut by the Board of Ed. My response, it is not what you've been charged to do when you were elected. It is what the Board of Ed is responsible for. Do I want my taxes to go up? No. But in order to have a town that young people want to live in, we must have a quality school system. With continued lack of support of our schools, our taxes may go up anyway because there are less taxpayers in town. Some have a very short memory. I may be getting old, but I do not. Hold on a sec. I'm very proud of that. 14 years ago, a terrible budget was put forth that took years to rebuild. The townspeople were not listened to. The budget was voted down. It was clear from the town meeting that more dollars were wanted for the Board of Ed, yet the town council chose to cut the budget even more. My sons did not have sports at McGee. There were no freshman sports at BHS. All extracurricular activities were canceled at the elementary schools and at McGee. Luckily, they all graduated. They got college degrees, all in 4 years, I might add. We now have this beautiful high school and a pretty good reputation with the state. Will we go back to 2004, 2005 again? We'll see.
Thank you. Next on the list, Laura Mashad. And please name and address for the record if you would.
Good evening. My name is Laura Mashad, 29 Woodruff Circle. I'm here tonight as a parent to put a human side to one of the programs that is currently not in the budget, and that is the Effective School Solutions, ESS. I know some of you have heard this before, but just so I feel so strongly that I'm willing to tell this personal story. My daughter was in 8th grade last year and wound up having panic attacks and quite a bit of anxiety. She started to get some counseling so that she could cope with the panic attacks, and fortunately that counselor had told her that she should come to her parents if she thought she might harm herself. And fortunately that she did do that, and fortunately, she did get the help she needed, which included some extensive outpatient, which required her to leave school halfway during the day for much of the second half of the year. It also required on our part, because we lived just outside of the transportation district for that program, for me to leave work every single day at lunch, pick her up, drive her there, drive back to work, my husband pick her up, and by the time she got home, there was no energy for homework, and it also excluded her from participating in extracurricular activities. On a positive note, she was doing much better, but I had a lot of trepidation about how freshman year might go, because that is a big adjustment. And to all you kids, it is not easy to be a teenager at any time, and let alone if you're, we'll just say it would go like this. I hope I don't have a panic attack. And then maybe having one, worrying about having one. And she is not alone. I know of kids who do not even go, let's say, to lunch because it causes anxiety for them, and so they spend that time in the bathroom. I know of a lot of kids struggling with anxiety or depression, and I got the call in August that they were going to implement this new program, and might she be willing to be involved. And this was the inaugural year, and she was willing to be involved, and last year, I'll just say she had close to 50 absences as a result of the anxiety. First semester, 0 absences. She's made the honor roll both times, both semesters so far. This program has incredibly contributed to her success academically, and she's in school. She has 1 period a day where she goes to, you could call it life skills, but she's able to have time for her homework. She can participate in extracurricular activities. It doesn't take time out of my work day, and I consider this program to be a success, but there's no way for you to know that unless we tell you, because we haven't finished a full year of it yet. But my child has had great success, and other children have, and I'd like for this program to be here for other students who may need a little extra support. And she is not a special ed student, she is regular ed, and it just becomes integrated into her day. And I know that there will be more students who need this program. Even if my child may not need it in the future, there will be many students who could benefit, and I ask you to. I know it costs money, and I'm actually asking you to put something back into the budget, but I think it's very cost effective rather than sending these students out of district, which is very expensive. It not only is cost efficient, but it's really contributing significantly to the quality of life for these students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kim Simeone and son.
Kim Simone, 73 Grapevine Lane. I am also here for the ESS program. I am a mother. My son was having a lot of problems, again, anxiety, and he would get hives and become very sick where he could not go to school. He missed many days, and this program has been a godsend. He is in school every day. He actually, today our dog ran away and he was so nervous about being late for school. It has given him tools to get over the anxiety, tools to get to school on time and every day. And this is one of the best programs I have seen to help children get over the anxieties and get over fears. So I highly support ESS.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Becky Starr and Greg Starr. Becky.
It's just me, I guess.
No, okay.
Becky Starr, 59 Hudson Street.
Thank you.
I am also here to support ESS. Our son has been in the program this year after a couple of years of dealing with anxiety and depression that just happened. He's a very bright, likable, wonderful young man that just got hit with this, like it could any of our children, and it's been a huge struggle for him just to go to school. The ESS program has allowed him to have a place within the school that he feels comfortable, that he gets the support he needs. They have group therapy, they have, the parents get therapy, the support is pretty amazing, and Berlin is one of the few towns that offers this, and it's a huge plus for all of our citizens. I hope people realize, you know, we just want for our son to get a diploma. He would not be in school if it wasn't for this program. He would be home. He wouldn't be able to go to school. It's still a struggle for him every day to get to school every morning. He doesn't always make it, but he definitely is there a lot more than he used to be. You know, he just wants the academics. He truly wants it. He wants to go to school in Berlin with the kids he knows. He wants to be in the town he's always been in. He doesn't want to have to leave town to go to school, which is what the alternative would probably be. You know, he's not into sports. He's not into band, unfortunately, but he just can't handle more than the academics at this point, and this is all we really want for him. For those of you that don't know the program, there's 18 students. It's about $275,000, which is really pretty cost effective when you consider sending a child out of district for their education, which of course the town is obliged to do. Could be anywhere from $60,000 to $200,000 a child. So I truly believe that there are many more students over and above the 18 that are in the program who could benefit from this type also, from this program. And I do think that actually if you do keep it and you do start seeing the benefits of it, that you probably would eventually expand it, is what I feel. Anyway, I'm just here to support that program, and I feel from the heart, and I know many of you know our story, that it could be anyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Evelisa Mayette. This is Mayette. Welcome. Hello.
Good evening. Evelisa Mayette, 178 Lower Lane. I have a child in 8th grade and a child in 11th grade. I am an English teacher here at Berlin High School, and I'm also the association president for the teachers. To the town council, I do not envy the job that you have in creating a budget for our town. Creating a budget that is fiscally sound and that also manages to address the needs of a town cannot be easy. And I'd like to believe that there was a lot of discussion that brought you to the numbers you chose to have reduced within each department. As a parent, an educator, and a representative for the teachers in Berlin, I cannot understand where you thought $1.4 million could possibly come from the Board of Education. I have spoken to Mr. Irwin over the last 2 budget cycles and saw cuts happen that may not have been ideal, but the district handled them. This amount is astronomical and insurmountable. I can only assume that you believe that there is that much in disposable funds, and if that is the case, you could not be more wrong. That sort of number can only mean people, and people can only mean that our students and their education would be heard. There are those who may think that my only concern is to save teachers' jobs, but that is not the case. If Mr. Irwin told me that we needed a reduction in force due to declining numbers, as much as I would hate for that to happen, we would live with it, and we have. There is no way to cut $1.4 million without cutting staff, and that will mean larger class sizes. The National Education Policy Center published a study where they stated that class size matters, and it matters a lot. Diane Whitmore Schanzenbach, an associate professor of human development and social policy at Northwestern and chair of the study, states, class size is an important determinant of student outcomes and one that can be directly determined by policy. All else being equal, increasing class sizes will harm student outcomes. In closing, to the town manager and the town council, please reconsider the $1.4 million in cuts. To the Board of Education, we know there will be cuts. We would never get away unscathed. So please make cuts wisely, ask the right questions, and look for the right ways to stay as far away from our students and their education. To the citizens here tonight, please consider what these cuts will do to our students. The cuts will do irreparable harm to the Berlin Public Schools District because once the money is gone, it will be incredibly difficult to recover the services and staff that will be lost. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Rice? Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Rice. My address is 63 Fawn Drive, and I'm here as a parent of 2 students. I have an 8th grader at McGee and a 5th grader at Willard. I'm also the library media specialist at McGee, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the library programs and technology integration at our schools. 2 years ago, I came to work in Berlin partly because I was so excited to be part of a true library and technology integration team. We are a district with certified library media specialists and technology integration specialists at all 5 of our schools. We have the unique opportunity to teach information and digital literacy skills to students from kindergarten through 12th grade. We teach these skills through collaboration with classroom teachers as well as in dedicated library sessions. This is a powerful and necessary model as we strive toward preparing our students for college and careers in the 21st century. It has been long debated whether schools can effectively operate without a certified library media specialist, and the fact is that research supports that cannot. We live in a digital age. We have students who have never known a world without Google. Our students are so tech-savvy, many of them can easily find information in a few clicks. However, they don't always understand what they're looking at. This is part of what we now teach. We teach students how to look critically at information. We show students how to navigate social media and help them to understand what it means to be a responsible digital citizen. We are still in the business of books, but our role has expanded and now includes teaching students how to communicate effectively in a rapidly changing digital world. This year's proposed budget reduction would mean the consolidation of library media specialists and the elimination of technology integration specialists. This sizable reduction would force Berlin schools to take a giant step backward in our ability to prepare students for success. We would no longer be able to teach and support some of the amazing things that are happening in our schools. For instance, our elementary students are coding. At the middle school, we are teaching students about digital health and wellness and cyberbullying. At the high school, the tech specialist is pushing students to improve their tech skills in order to compete in a global society. These specialist positions allow students to reach Common Core benchmarks. They provide necessary professional development and support to teachers and staff. We also manage and help teach using Chromebooks, which every student, grades 3 through 12, have at their disposal. So we all live and work in a digital age, and in light of that fact, our school libraries in Berlin have adapted to have a 21st century model to prepare our students to be successful. I grew up here in Berlin, left for about 10 years, and came back to raise my children here because I had confidence in the educational system. So please consider the long-term implications to our students if the library and tech specialists are consolidated and/or eliminated. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Selena, hi.
Hi, my name is Danielle Selena, 95 Spicewood Lane. I'm a Berlin resident, parent of 3 daughters, 2 of which go to Griswold School, 1 at McGee Middle School, and for 6 years I have been the library media specialist at Griswold Elementary School. Each year, on the first day of school, we watch as kindergarten parents share a tearful goodbye with their children. And as we catch their eye, we give them our reassuring smile, sharing an unspoken exchange that promises to them, don't worry, we will nurture your child. We will guide your child. We will teach your child. We will prepare your child to be a 21st century learner, an independent learner who is kind and empathetic, self-motivated, active, and constructive. The budget cuts that are being considered would dramatically negatively impact our ability to keep this promise to our parents. Berlin's library media specialists introduce children to literature and other resources to build upon that essential foundation of loving books and loving to read. This is a lifelong skill. Budgets have gotten tighter year after year, but we always find a way to make it work. When the platform of reading began to change, incorporating ebooks as well as hard copy books, we entered into national contests. We took first place 2 times, earning $13,000. And that money was poured right back into our schools and right back into our libraries. Without your school library media specialists, this never would have happened. When our town library suffered water damage, we held a read-in and a pledge-a-thon highlighting the joys of reading, but also the importance for community involvement. We were able to raise and donate $2,000 back to our Peck Library. Again, without your school library media specialists, this never would have happened. When we didn't have funding for visiting authors, we wrote grants culminating in over $10,000 to hire authors and illustrators to visit with our children and discuss literature and art and the importance of following your dreams. Again, without your school library media specialists, this would not have happened. Library media specialists work alongside our technology teachers to facilitate access to information. We teach students how to acquire and evaluate and use information and the technology needed in this process. We help to prepare students to be effective users of ideas and information. Again, lifelong skills. We have established district technology benchmarks for all K-5 students to ensure that each and every one of our children, no matter where they go, receives the same and equal access to and instruction with technology. Without school library media specialists and technology teachers, this would never have happened. And when we did not have the money to fund 21st century learning, what did we do? We wrote a grant. And we were awarded $10,000 to fund our first iPad cart 6 years ago. Again, without your school library media specialists and technology teachers, this would not have happened. Parents, believe me, we want to keep our promise to you. We want to nurture our children. We want to guide our children and teach our children and prepare our children to be 21st century learners. But in order to keep our promise to you, we need funding and we need our jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up.
Hi, my name is Rosina Marquis. I'm at 255 Vineyard Drive. I am the mother of a sophomore at Berlin High School and of a 2013 graduate. I am a kindergarten teacher and a proud member of Griswold Elementary School that includes amazing leaders and a fabulous staff that goes beyond classroom teachers. I'd like to start by thanking my colleagues, Mame, Jan, Evelisa, Rachel, and Danielle for their wonderful messages to the Town Council tonight. I have prepared only a few but important words for you. I am supporting the Board of Ed's proposed status quo budget and against the Town Council's recommendations to cut $1.4 million. The recommended cuts would be detrimental to the education of all of our children. These cuts will affect class size, which is a primary indicator of student success. The cuts will also mean a reduction of many services, which will directly impact students at every level of education. The board has done a good job of maintaining services with cuts that are not seen by the general public, but have affected educators. Please remember that these are our children and that our schools are the biggest asset of our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Bobby Coughlin, next on the list.
My name is Barbara Coughlin, and I
Sorry.
live at 259 Alling Street. And I'd like to congratulate the Republicans for two reasons. First of all, You've drawn a crowd. The Democrats never got this many people here. And I suspect that that's because people were content with modest tax increases that supported town services and trimmed the Board of Education budget with a paring knife instead of a machete. But to the adults here, I want to know where you were for the last 12 or 14 years. And for the young people, I want you to know that it's as important to come to a budget hearing when you support the proposal as it is when you're outraged by it. If you had been here, we might not be having this conversation now because we might not have to be facing this. I also want to thank the Republicans for giving us an amazingly bipartisan budget. Like good Republicans, you're cutting services and compromising the quality of our school system. But you are also giving us the tax increase you kept claiming is the hallmark of the Democrats. Nice job. You've given us the worst of both worlds. So, I'm curious as to what you did about all those signs about lower taxes and no tax increase. Maybe you're saving them for the next election, hoping you can fool people again, but I don't think anybody here is going to be fooled. I also can't help but wonder what might have been kept in the budget using the taxpayers' money that you're spending to replace a competent town manager because you hanker for change. I think if you feel a little ennui the next time you want change, a fresh coat of paint in your living room can work wonders and won't cost the taxpayers a dime. Now, as the town clerk noted, I have been here every year, and I've always said the same thing. We are a community, and the needs of everyone in the community need to be taken into account. No one likes to pay taxes. No one likes unnecessary government spending. But all too often, unnecessary government spending is considered to be what I don't need right now. But that isn't true. We're all connected to each other, and our needs are cyclical. A few years ago, a young woman got up and said it was important to her that the proposed Board of Ed budget not be cut because she moved into town for the school system. But she also wanted the value of her house preserved so that when her kids were finished, she could sell the house and move south where taxes are lower. She wasn't thinking about the people who want to stay here in their homes after their homes have graduated and they're retired and have a reduced income. Both that young woman and her children and those seniors are equally important. We need to maintain a high-quality school system, not just because it might attract young people to town, but because our children are our future. We need an educated citizenry. We need to give our children the tools they need to grow and succeed in an increasingly complex world. We also need our streets to be plowed, our garbage to be collected. We need to know there will be first responders available in a time of crisis. We need to have a vibrant, well-funded library. We need parks, playing fields, open space. We need to be able to care for the vulnerable among us. No one of us is going to use all of this in a given year. I no longer have kids who are in the school system. I have not, thank God, needed the fire department, the ambulance, or social services. I'm not yet ready for the senior center. But that doesn't mean that any of this is unnecessary government spending. Some of it I've used in the past. Some of it I'll use in the future. Some of it I may not, but my neighbor will. The hard reality is that there are going to have to be some compromises. But to have a viable town, we need a strong school system, solid basic services. We need quality of life elements like the library and parks. And as my Republican friends here have finally seemed to have grasped all of this needs to be paid for, and that pretty much means at least a modest tax increase. Now, as Bones McCoy would say, I'm a doctor, not an accountant. $150 a year breaks down to about $3 a week. Most people in town can afford that with a minimum of sacrifice. Give up that Starbucks coffee. Double that, and you can double what is available to help maintain the quality of schools and town services. That's $1 a week. But we have to acknowledge that there are those in straitened circumstances for whom that might pose an unsupportable burden. I would like to ask the Town Council what might be put in place to help those for whom even a modest tax increase would be an unsupportable burden. There is property tax relief available for senior citizens, which I believe operates on a sliding scale and is based on need. But what else can be done to help residents, especially those who have made their homes, Berlin their home for years, and who are suffering a setback like layoffs? I know there might not be such resistance to a modest and necessary tax increase if people knew it would not force them for their homes or require truly painful financial decisions.
Thank you very much. Sarah Patel, next on the list. Yes.
Sarah Patel, 65 Savona Road. Good evening, members of the Town Council and the Board of Education. I'm here tonight as an advocate for the children of Berlin. As a lifelong resident, a proud graduate of Berlin Public Schools, and a mom of a kindergartner, I have several concerns regarding cutting our education funding by almost $1.4 million. I know times are tough. We, as adults, we all feel it. However, I firmly believe that our children should not feel it. They are our future, our future. They need every penny we can spare invested in them. They are the ones who will fill the seats you and I are sitting in. Without the best education we can provide, they will not be prepared to walk in your shoes and make hard decisions that are the best for Berlin citizens. Berlin has long been a town that is sought after to live in. So many of us come back home after college or trying other things, and we choose to buy homes and raise our children here. We value what this town has to offer, and it was what was given to us. There is no doubt that our education system is one of the major draws for both graduates of our school system and new residents who choose to raise their children here in Berlin. By cutting the budget such a large amount, this will devastate our school system. That's not an exaggeration. By cutting the budget such a large amount, oh, I already said that, oops. Our children will absolutely lose in this scenario. Larger class sizes, less access to needed services, less extracurricular activities, and less instructional leadership would impact our children negatively. I didn't write this part, but for me, school wasn't always about the core subjects. What started as a lullaby with my grandmother singing to me when I was just a baby grew into a passion, a career, and my life, music. Annette Selena started it when I walked in the door of Willard School when I was 5. Her son's right over there and her daughter-in-law. And honest to goodness, she spent those years forming what would become my life outside of my family. And it continued with Ron Campanerio and Paul Carroll and Bob Kelly and Corey Terlecki. I can name all of those people because of the profound impact they had on me. And none of those teachers, although I could name plenty of core subject teachers, because they were important as well, those people were the reason I came to these buildings. Those people were the reason I got out of bed and I loved school. It was the difference between like and love. But like anybody can tell you, that is the biggest difference. It's the biggest difference. This town gave me that. They fostered the love of music within me. It wasn't just my mom and dad, although they were everything. It wasn't my grandparents who started it. It was this town, the people of this town who came to the concerts. It was the people of this town who came to see the plays. It was the people of this town who let me be me, who gave me music. And that's true. It might sound hokey, but it's true. So when we talk about these extras, to one kid like me, they weren't an extra. They were everything, literally. So I want you to think about that. School's just not about learning. It's about so much more. It's about passion. It's about finding your life's work. And for me, that happened when I was young. And I know that doesn't happen for everyone. I know there's people who have to go out and figure themselves out. But for me, it was Berlin schools and a town who believed that music was important and who let me believe that music was important, who valued who I was. And I can't tell you how strong that has made me as a person. So for our kids, for that kid, for me, for that 5-year-old walking in to Griswold or Willard or Hubbard, who already has a love of something, we have to provide for that. It's not fair of us to take that away. So I understand that we're in a difficult position. Of course we want to be fiscally conservative. It's our pocketbook, I get that. But I implore you to find other ways to do this. Exhaust every possibility before taking the money from our kids. They deserve more than political scare tactics. They deserve the very best we can give them, and that is a town that believes in quality, good education that is varied across curriculum and repertoire. Thank you.
Okay, we've come to the end of our list. Now we will take people from the audience. Saw your hand go up first, so yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Good evening. Whoa. My name is John Markowski. I 160 Overhill Drive. My wife and I moved into town about 12 years ago, and one of the things that drew us to the town was the prospect of having kids to have a good education. Now, what you've shown me here, everybody's looking at it as a tragedy, and I'm looking at it as an opportunity. My question to everybody in front of me here is, how far are you willing to have Berlin drop on that list you showed us? Where's your bottom line? And what do you think that's going to do? And what do you think that's going to do to keep the grand list maintained? Because I can guarantee you, when you drop on that list, you're going to throw away a lot of potential people that are going to look at our town and keep that grand list, because the demographic in this state is getting older, and you're going to need every opportunity to keep what you have so that grand list doesn't change. One of the things, I was looking at your budget, and I don't know exacts on the contract what it is, but I'm looking at a Golf Pro for $102,000 going up to $103,000. I play golf, I enjoy it, but in all reality, I'd rather have a library technician than a Golf Pro. You guys should be creative. You guys should be creative in thinking that, at the very least, cut his budget by 50% and make the fees for the public go up to make up that difference. It's unreasonable to get rid of them because it's part of the game and people need a golf pro on site. I understand that. But it's stuff like this that you have to take a look at and see outside the box what things are a luxury and what things are actually a necessity. Now, professionally, I'm an engineering manager. And I can tell you right now, it's very hard to find people in my profession that fill jobs. Programmers, they can ask their price for programming robots and other types of technology. Our kids, when they get to be my age and your age, programming is going to be like breathing. They're going to need that skill. It's going to be the difference between them being at a drive-through saying, "Would you like fries with that?" and actually having a job that they can keep food on the table and a roof over their head. So I pose to you, try to think outside the box and come up with a way on how to keep us not only where we are on that list, but maybe even bring us up even higher, because the competition's only going to get worse. And we're in this boat with other towns. And if you don't think they're going to try to do the same thing, you're crazy. Because you're going to have to make this town look attractive to anybody that's going to be wanting to come into the state or come back into the state to fulfill having a family or just being moved into the area because they got a job. So thank you very much for your time.
My name is Min Fisher, 110 Elton Road. I spoke 2 years ago. I am the one who mentioned home price value. And I'm going to continue to talk about it. But first of all, I want to say, nobody likes a tax increase. I don't. But for the greater good of the community, we might have to go a little bit further than what we proposed here tonight. Also, on the other hand, nobody likes to give up nice things such as technology, sports, etc. And I do think they're very important for the competitiveness of our kids when they go out to the labor market. But I do trust the Board of Education to do some rearrangement to gain some efficiency, to control some cost without compromising the quality of education. But I do feel that $1.2 million cut is a little bit too drastic. It will cut the quality of the education, and it will cut to the bare bone for the school district. I have to say, this school district does not really have a whole lot of fat to cut to start with. I have to mention this. In other schools, including those inner city magnet schools, open choice schools, and Simsbury, of course, West Hartford, they all have foreign language at elementary level. And our town never have it. I'm not talking about any exotic language, but just like Spanish. It's the most widely spoken language. Thank you. In America, I think kids should be exposed to foreign language early on for brain development and probably for the future in order to find a job. If you know foreign language, it really gives you an edge. So there is unmet needs already, and now I'm not even talking about adding that because we don't have the budget right now. Maybe in the future we need to think about it, but now the $1.4 million cut will really cut to the school to the bare bone. I actually have two practical matters for the town to think about. The first one is, if we indeed go through that $1.4 million cut, what will the school look like? What will the quality of education will be in this town? here's the thing, even today, there are quite a lot of kids go to those open choice and magnet schools. Luckily, it's based on lottery, so not everyone can go. But I have to say, over the past few years, my kids got into 3 of them. But of course, we say no. We believe in public school, and I don't believe in social experiment. Well, that's my philosophical leaning, but I'm not going to talk about this. But again, the thing is, if the school is no longer attractive to kids, the parents in this town, parents will be propelled to look other ways. Maybe more people will enroll in those open choice and magnet schools. Every time kids go to other school districts, we have to send a check out. I think the things will get worse. As you all know, we have a new Secretary of Education in the country now. She is a big proponent of school voucher. There are talks or speculation or discussion, whatever you call, that the school voucher program may be expanded to private schools. 2 weeks ago, I had lunch with a friend who is a financial director of the private school my kids used to go to. And she said the whole school was very buoyant by the prospect of getting some school voucher. And I said, oh no, this is your gain, our loss. It's a zero-sum game. So the problem is, if I assure you, a lot of private schools don't have a wait list, don't need lottery to get in, So if more and more parents take the school out of the school district, this school district will be stuck with a lot of fixed cost. And then the school district will be in a downward spiral, and then the town will be dragged down. The second thing I want the town to think about is the home price, and I have to mention this, because two years ago, I never say I want to sell my house and move to a lower tax South. I have to say it's too red for me in the South. I just say, eventually, when you get old, you don't want to maintain the house. You may want to move to somewhere warmer. You may want to move to a condo, even in town. My husband and I talk about maybe we should buy a newer house instead of fixing up the house. I cannot sell my house. On my street, there are 2 houses on sale in the past 2 years, and both of them have deep discount, even cheaper than 10 years ago when one of them bought them. The house was not, both houses were not sold. I don't think I can sell my house now in Berlin. But at the national level, home price has already pretty much go back to pre-financial crisis time, but not in Berlin. I have to say, there is a high correlation between home price and the school district. If we let the school district go, and the home price will go down too. And recently, I know a few people moved to West Hartford, and they said, oh, we don't have children yet. We may not even use the school district. But, we pay a lot of tax here, but luckily, our home price will hold. I cannot say that about Berlin, So I understand in this town, a lot of people probably inherit the house from great-grandparents, parents, and intend to give the children their house. I don't intend to do so. I need the money to go to retirement home, maybe eventually. So maybe we lose our job, we have to move, job loss, job changes. So, home price appreciation is important to us. So please don't let the school district go down. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Theo, 71 Magnolia Lane. So I wanted to first start by pointing out all of the students that we have here. We all took time out of our crazy weekday schedules because we had some very important concerns that we wanted to just have addressed, and we wanted to make sure our voices were heard. So around 2004, 2005, we had a big budget cut like this one, and extracurriculars such as band were cut down at the elementary school level. The result of that budget cut was a knowledge deficit that hindered the progress of students for years and years to come, not just the year that it was cut, but all the way up until even recently. So I just want to take a second and imagine cutting tech ed, FCS, music, anything that isn't considered a core class at something like the middle school. It creates a gap that higher educators have to fill on top of their already impossible jobs. As a student, I know how hard teachers have to work. Kids are not the easiest people to deal with. So teachers will not only be trying to keep their performance up to the standards that the state has set, but they'll have to fill the gap that was created by cutting programs at lower levels. And again, teachers work so hard to meet the standards, to make sure they can retain their jobs, and cutting programs from earlier education risks their career paths. And we shouldn't be doing that to our teachers who are educating the generations of tomorrow. Now, this may seem crazy, but on the proposal, the exploratory classes at the middle school are on the chopping block. So if we lose it there, what comes next? Like I said, cutting these programs is going to lead to gaps that will never be recovered. So when students not only go on to high school, but when they go into college and they go to choose careers, we've put them at a disadvantage from other students. Other students from other towns are going to go on to higher education, and they're going to have the knowledge beforehand, and they're going to know what to do. And our students are going to be set back, and that's going to drive people away from our town. On top of that, on one of the graphs that we were shown earlier, the largest section of the graph that had to do with school spending showed the salaries of our teachers. And because it's the largest, that's the first place that's going to get cut. But don't let that fool you. Our teachers may have the largest percentage, but that's because we have so many that are working hard to teach our students. We can't look at it and say 54% means that we need to cut there. We need to find other routes and avenues to cut funding, because at this point, we have cut it down so far that cutting spending for salaries isn't just reducing a teacher's salary, it's cutting people. Not teachers, not percentages, people. People that are teaching our students, and me personally, and all the people that I'm here with today, our teachers, the ones that are changing our lives, are going to lose their jobs. I obviously understand that this town has to make cuts. It's mandated. We have budgets to meet and a fiscal year to fit inside of, but don't hinder the future of your students to make sure you meet those deadlines. All of us here, like I mentioned, we're students, we're taking time out of our busy week. We have homework to go home to, we have projects, we have tests to study for. If we can make it work and we can have time, we'd really like to see the town make time and make it work for us. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Melissa. That's loud, sorry. I'm Melissa Uranaga, 1075 Orchard Road. I'm the mom of 4 kids, 3 of which are in the school system right now, and 1 coming into the Berlin school system. I'm really concerned about the cuts to the school system because it worries me about our ability to stay competitive. As many people have already said, cutting our budgets is going to impact our town broadly, in that it's going to lose the luster of moving to Berlin. My husband and I moved to Berlin 13 years ago because of the school systems, because of the opportunities that you guys were going to provide our children. I'm concerned that the resources have been stripped down to the bare bones year after year, and when will you guys recognize that the wave is going to come crashing ashore at the expense of our children? I'm concerned about the sacrifice of our children's education, and it's not going to only impact them, but the future of our town overall. It's going to lower the interest in Berlin that once existed. Professionally, I work with a number of school systems and districts, and I'm involved with a lot of different programs in schools, and I cannot speak enough to the value of student-teacher relationships, to the relationships, like somebody previously mentioned, some of the reason some kids come to school is because of the positive connections. For some of the kids that we work with, this is all they have. This is their connection and their lifeline, and to cut that worries me, because what's going to happen then? What's going to happen to those kids? The partnership between school, community, and family is invaluable in creating good adults and valuable citizens. like Mrs. Little said, it takes a village to raise a child. When are we going to start partnering together and raise our children? Our Youth Service Bureau, for example, is probably one of the most understaffed youth service bureaus in the 14 towns I cover professionally. And I think we're doing them a huge disservice as well. I understand times are tough, but we need to make our kids a priority. This is our future. This is the future of our town. And if we don't make a stand soon, I worry about what's going to happen to the town of Berlin. Thank you.
Robert Dacy. Robert Dacy, 34 Magnolia Lane, East Berlin. I've been coming to these meetings for well over 50 years, closer to 60. And I gotta say, I sat on that side of the table for 13 years. And I gotta say again, this is the worst budget I've ever seen. I don't know what you were thinking. It really has the depth of a puddle. Think about it. Think about it. The superintendent asked for a certain amount of money. When I was on that side of the table, we never gave him what he asked for. Never. But what we did do, we sat down with the superintendent and we worked out a compromise that benefited you the kids. That's what we worked out then. Now, it's 4 people here, and I'm talking these 4. Stay strictly with one concept in mind. How are you going to get re-elected? That's your only concept. David, what are you going to be able to do with this budget? All I ask you is just simply say, are you going to have to make serious cuts? Is the answer yes? Jack, I looked at the capital expenditures of this budget, and I'm not looking only at the Board of Ed side. I'm looking at the town side. Jack in his daytime job, his real daytime job, is the chief engineer of the town. He's acting as the interim town manager. We just let, unfortunately, the best town manager we ever had under this system. They fought her out. And don't come back with alternative facts on that. But Jack, getting back to you. You went through this budget, and I think you did a very professional job in terms of the capital expenditures. And presented to you has been presented from all the budgets I've ever worked on, the 13 years I worked on them. Everybody puts their wish list up, and that's the way they should do. I'm talking about the department managers. And it comes down to the town manager, the town engineer, to sift through those things. And you came up with $1,200,000+, which basically is the needed baseline for capital expenditures in the town of Berlin. Anything below that injures the town. You have to have trucks. You have to have buildings repaired. You came up with $1.2 million. They reduced that by 50%. So now, if they let this budget go through, and I think they will, I think they'll just let this budget go through. Doesn't matter what you say. It really does, you're wasting your time, because they're not listening. This gentleman here just scratched right down and hasn't raised his head since. It's not only listening, it's hearing what you listen to and understand what they are saying. So let's get down to the basic fact. There's nothing you can do about it. Only throw these people out. And now, they've rigged the election.
Excuse me, we're supposed to talk about the budget tonight, but this is not a political discussion, so can we keep it to the budget,
You don't
please?
want to talk
Sir?
about how you rigged the election?
No, I would like to keep it to our school budget. That's what we're here to talk about tonight, and our town budget and the budget combined. So can we
Okay.
keep on track? We have a lot of other people that
Where
need to
are
speak.
what are you going to do
not a
about the capital expenditures of the town? You just can't keep cutting. The town manager, when he was an interim town manager, when he was a town engineer, get up at a town meeting, said to David Evans, you have to face the facts. You have to spend money on capital. Is that correct? The other thing, these are the four, and I say four because I'm stopping there, because these are the four that helped try to stop the building of the school.
Oh, my goodness.
And that is an expense.
Oh, my goodness. Just wait, just 1 second. I just want to clear that up once and for all. The stopping the building of the school, I had a son that was going to benefit from the building of the school. He did benefit from part of it. Second of all, unless you were in the voting booth and know how I voted, you don't know what I did. And third of all, I was on planning and zoning and I voted for the school. So just stop with that, okay? I'm tired of hearing facts that are not
I
correct.
apologize to
Thank
you.
very much.
But that doesn't let these three up.
That's not what we're here. They can defend themselves, but that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. The school is built. We're standing in it. It's beautiful. We needed it. Let's go on with the budget talk, please.
Well,
That's what we're here to talk about tonight.
the point is, put the money, some money back. You don't have to give them the 1.9, is it? Oh, I'm sorry. You don't have to give them the 1.9. They really never expected. The town engineer or the town manager never really expected to get all the money he wanted or needed. It's not what he wanted, it's what he needed. And what he needs is 1.2 million, just as he put in this document. 1.2 million. You ain't gonna do it, babe. You guys are not gonna do it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Christopher Korzinski, 69 Mildrum Road.
Welcome.
Thank you. Council, everybody here, I just want to thank and applaud everybody for coming out to this. I think it's very important. It seems like the theme here is to just cut. We're talking about 1.4 million here, this, that, everything there. To me, what is the solution? What can we do to solve these things? I haven't heard any discussion at all of how we can make it work. I haven't heard any plans of how we can actually take the 1.4 and use it to a benefit. I haven't heard how all these other areas, be it with public safety, public works, and everything else that are requesting the money, are not even coming up with any ideas of grant writing. I personally work for New Britain EMS. I'm a healthcare provider, and I feel it's very important to have quality equipment in public safety. I strongly support the police department and the fire department, but I have not heard once that there was going to be any grant writing involved to obtain 1.8 million for communications and 500,000 for SCBAs. Okay, that is equipment that is vital to our first responders, but then again, the city of New Britain obtained $750,000 to fully outfit their fire department with SCBAs. $750,000. They're asking for $500K. I think some of that, if it could be offset, would provide at least some sort of financial relief to the town and to this budget. Thank you. Secondly, is the economic developer on the panel right now. Very convenient. The reason I say that is because while we're on the topic of solutions here, I haven't heard anything going on in the town as far as providing any quality businesses, corporations, or industries coming in.
I can answer that if you'd like.
And one more thing.
Yeah.
It sounds small. It sounds minuscule, but I drive by it every day, to and from work. We have the old Arby's restaurant that has been sitting there for years, okay? I know for a fact that several businesses, including franchises, such as even Starbucks, wanted to come in.
No.
Okay?
Incorrect. Anyway, go
Well,
ahead.
here's the thing, sir. I
Yes.
mean, we have an empty building sitting there
Yes.
that is in great shape, great form, with a brand-new parking
Great.
lot
Couldn't agree
in a
more.
location off both highways that could be easily accessed, and it's doing absolutely nothing. We have lots and acres of land throughout the entire town of Berlin, flat land, that doesn't even need massive construction work to be done to build structures, to build businesses, to build something. And I'm all for mom and pop shops. That's what Berlin's kind of all about. I truly respect that. But we cannot have an income to support our education system, our public safety system, and the rest of our financial structure of this town on mom and pop shops. Okay, there's no growth and progress here, unfortunately. I look at surrounding towns. You're shaking your head no, sir, but I'm looking at surrounding towns like Rocky Hill, who had an economic developer 2 decades ago build Executive Drive, building several corporations coming in, including Burris, American Cancer Society, AT&T, Marriott, and so on, that is funding a tremendous amount to pay the salaries of the people that work for the town of Rocky Hill. Okay? That's a big tax base coming in from there. Look at the town of Newington. Newington taking Sam's Club away from us because they decided to give them a good tax break and then make an investment for it in the future. They left here. What are we doing to bring something in? I think if we brought in proper infrastructure, if we brought in proper businesses, I'm not talking mom and pop shops. I'm not talking another pizza restaurant in town. I'm not talking about another Subway restaurant in town. I'm talking a corporation, a real industry. Like when New Britain just recently acquired Palmer Precision that has a 150,000 square foot facility that is now building another 150,000 square foot facility next to it. New Britain's getting good revenue off that, including Celebration Foods, like they built off of Myrtle Street, bringing in a great amount of tax revenue, which Aaron Stewart is doing a phenomenal job there, and I must say, working for a town in New Britain is doing good. So how about we focus on bringing more income and money into this town to curtail this discussion, to not have people so outraged, upset, and worried, especially me as a parent, where both my kids go to Hubbard School, and I'm looking right there at Principal Al Souza, who's an amazing man, who does an amazing job with each of these students, and when I say he takes each one of them individually into perspective, that's exactly what he does. And he should receive a lot of recognition for that, as should all the students that are so lucky to have the quality teachers they have. I went through private school my whole life. I don't know what public school is. My parents sent me through private school my whole life. And when my wife wanted to send them to public school, I was initially against it. Best choice I made. And as I'm saying it's the best choice I made for my children, that's why I'm saying I would like for it to continue. And that budget needs to get approved for the school because this is the future of this town, okay? This isn't something, I'm not trying to echo what everybody else said, but this is an investment. Just like I said, the town needs to make investments with bringing in proper income to curtail these issues financially. That is the same thing with our school system. It is an investment for the future of this town. And you really need to take a good look into that. And quite frankly, I'm going to finish it with this. With this entire panel that we have here, one word: accountability and credibility. And quite frankly, I think our economic developer is lacking. That's showing that he's not even here tonight.
Okay, hang on 1 second. 1 second. Obviously, this is about our budget. This is not an economic development meeting, but I would like to dispel just several rumors, and I think we try to get this information out there. But it's great you're all here tonight to hear this. Starbucks was never. I've been on planning and zoning for 16 years. Okay, before I became the mayor. Starbucks was never coming to town. They were never coming here. They chose not to come here. We tried to get them here. They were never coming. We had some other rumors recently that Five Guys was coming. I wish. We tried. We've tried. They've never said they were coming here. Arby's may be coming back to that building. Do you know why that building is vacant? That building is vacant because Arby's signed I want to say, a 15-year lease at some outrageous amount. Good for the landlords, wonderful for the landlords, but it's very difficult for other businesses to move in there because they would have to assume that lease. So I think Arby's, the last I heard, is deciding to come back because they're paying for it anyway. So hopefully that at least we will have somebody in that building. We've had over 40 businesses move to town in the last year and a half. I hope you've seen the Turnpike. The new Acura dealership is moving to the Turnpike, a beautiful new building, and another building next to it that will put some businesses in there. We have a new factory on Christian Lane that's being built. They moved here from Rocky Hill to Berlin, which will bring in millions of dollars of tax increases. Things are going in the right direction economically, and that's maybe we'll have another meeting about that, and I think we should with our Economic Development Commission, because I do believe there's some information that we do need to get out there. So just to clear up some of those rumors that seem to persist. And just one last thing, we can do so much as a town. Recently the paint store across from CVS moved out of town earlier, I think mid last year. So this is what we face as a problem on Farmington Avenue. So I asked the gentleman I bought all my paint there. He was excellent. I said, what's wrong? What's wrong with Berlin? Why are you leaving? And he said, I love Berlin. I love the town. I love the town government. People come to my store here, and he has other stores in different towns. I said, well, why are you leaving? He said, because the landlord is charging me $7,000 a month rent, and I'm not going to sign another 5-year lease for that amount of money. There's nothing we can do about that. The landlord is going to charge what they're going to charge, and we have seen that on certain locations, particularly on Farmington Avenue, that some of the rent that some of these landlords want, quite frankly, Berlin can't support it. And the other thing I tell people, one last point on economic development, is really one of my sore points. Businesses have moved to town in the last few years. People don't go there. They go out of business. We can bring all the businesses to town we want, but if you do not support your local business, they cannot make it. So we can do only so much, okay? We can only do so much. And we've tried. We have a supermarket up on Chamberlain Highway there. I mean, I think that lease payment's probably pretty high too. I hope people are going there, or they're not going to make it either. If we do not support our local businesses, they won't make it. And we've seen that with several businesses in town. We try to attract national change. Very difficult in Berlin. We're not really on the Turnpike land. I know that comes up all the time. Just real brief. Again, planning and zoning kicks in here. There's several parcels on the Berlin Turnpike. Most of the land on the Berlin Turnpike, we don't have big parcels left there. South of Route 9, there's a few. We're trying to market them. We have an economic development director that's doing a great job. He's relatively new in town. He's been here about 1.5 years now. He's doing fantastic. So things are going in the right direction. That's why the grand list is up. We want to raise it more. Sure we do. And we're trying to do that. So no, it's not going the other way. It's going the right way as far as from what I could see. And just one other thing, too, that bothered me. I'm sorry, that one of the people said, we're not making these decisions in a vacuum for the school system in particular, which is what we've heard most about tonight. And it's very important. We're sitting in a beautiful new high school that we needed, and we have. I went to Berlin school system. I moved out of town with my job for about 15 years, and I chose to come back to Berlin as well. After being away for 15 years. I've been back 20 years. My son, one child, went through the Berlin schools. He graduated 2 years ago. One child. I didn't miss anything from Griswold through Berlin High School. So I'm very familiar with the Berlin school system. I understand what they need. I've been in the schools. All of us have. Other members of our council have children in the high school now and in the school system now. We don't make this in a vacuum. It's very, very difficult. Yes, we don't want to cut our fire service. We don't want to cut our police response time. We don't want to cut anything out of anyone. But it's very tough. But we all live in town together. We live here too. It's a cooperative effort with all of us on the council, with our town departments, with our school board. We have to cooperate. Absolutely, we have to. So we're trying the best we can, and we will continue to do that. We hear what you're saying tonight. So, more. Yes, young lady. Oh, you'll be next. Yeah.
Hi, ooh, that's really loud. Hi, my name's Sarah Couchy, 189 Patterson Way. I'm a current junior at BHS. I play volleyball. I do a lot for this school. I have been in drama club. I'm drama club officer, captain of the improv team. I'm in Upbeat. I am student directing the spring play, student manage the musical. I basically live at this school. And I was not a Berlin resident until in between 8th and 9th grade. And so I originally lived in New Britain. And I know for a fact everybody's talking about like cutting teachers and how class sizes are gonna grow. And I know I had 37 people in every single class all the time throughout middle school. And I know for a fact that transitioning to here, I was like, oh, what is this? Like, it was great. I learned so much more in my first year, freshman year, than I think I learned in all of middle school. I think that really needs to be taken into consideration because I know a lot of my peers and a lot of parents and everything, like we all talk about all these studies that say you can't learn in big groups, but I know for a fact you can, but that's not, nothing in comparison to what I have learned having teachers and having experiences with all of them. Also, another thing I wanted to talk about was art classes, music classes. I'm in chorus as well. I am super involved and I love all of them. I know our chorus class, it got brought up that this budget meeting was happening, so our chorus teacher told us if you're interested, go. And I know how many people were so scared when they heard that music and band and art and all these quote unquote special classes were going to have to suffer. And I know growing up, having them being called extras and specials, it kind of gave the insinuation that they weren't as important as core subjects. And I think they are, because in a nation where empathy and love and confidence and creativity and innovation, that's what everybody's looking for jobs, and for any boss you go to try to get a job, their first question is like, oh, well, sell me this. And they give you an elevator pitch, and if you don't have creativity, if you don't have confidence that you learn in those classes, then you're not gonna be able to do that. And I think that overall, since I'm a junior, I've been going on a lot of college visits, and schools have not been advertising their core subjects really. When I go there, they're talking about their extracurriculars. They're talking about their study abroad. They're talking about everything that they do outside of what you initially think school is, because those are the things that teach you the most. They are the things that really get yourself out there. I know through Upbeat, I have learned peer leadership skills that I would not have known. I would not know how to stand up here. I would not know how to address a crowd this big. I would not know any of that without any of them. And that's what you're going to have to do in the workplace. And I think really it is very essential, and I know it's very kicking to young children. If they, like that woman was talking about, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but you go into school and maybe you have a slight passion for music, but if you hear that they're called specials or extras, or they get cut, then they're not good enough. That's not a real job, they say. That doesn't count. What's your favorite subject in school? You say art, they're like, oh no, I need a real subject. And that's not a good thing to be sending a message to your kids. I know for a fact, throughout my life, I always told people I wanted to be a math teacher. I'm awful at math. Sorry, no. But that's what I said, because I really wanted to do something creative, but that wasn't a real job. And people didn't talk about it as a real job. It didn't count. And so when we have a budget, and we have all these cuts, and you're saying, yeah, that's the bottom. That's where we're gonna slice. Then that's sending that message to others. And now I want to go into film and directing. And I realized that art is a real job. That's the woman. And I realized that these things are important. And all the liberal arts schools that I've looked at, they all say art in all these classes, especially media and reading, they teach you how to empathize and how to work with people. And in this country, where we're trying to figure out our direction of economic state and jobs and everything, If we don't have those basic skills that aren't necessarily taught through a textbook, then we're just going to go out in the real world and kind of fail and crawl back. So, thank you.
She just gave me the greatest segue. I'm Diane Mancino, 6 Harvest Hill Road. I'm here to support the Library Media Center Specialist position. I'm a retired speech and language pathologist that served many, many school districts across Connecticut in my career. I also had the wonderful opportunity to work for 6 years on a research grant at Yale University with Sally Shaywitz, who is big into dyslexia, literacy, and all of that. And I bring that up because of this position that I'm supporting. All of the specialists have already gone through their job description and what it is they do on a day-to-day basis. We all know that the Common Core curriculum holds everybody to a higher standard. There's higher expectations, and the basis of it is student-guided learning. So gone is the day where the teacher guides you and you recite things back. Gone are the days of being dependent on textbooks. This new curriculum, in order to create these independent critical thinkers and problem solvers, they need to go into a wide range of information. Now, who is going to provide that information? The classroom teacher's job is to teach all this content, but it's the library and media specialist who's the one that can collaborate with teachers. And they are the ones that find this information. They are the ones, they collaborate with everybody at every level, from administration to classroom teachers to the kids, in order to have all that academic information available. There was just, I'm going to give you some research-based evidence. Just this month in the School Library Journal, there was an entire article that talked about how the library media specialist has a leadership role in the implementation of the Common Core. And just to put that little piece in a nutshell, there is what's called a crosswalk, where every benchmark of the curriculum for library media is matched against all the Common Core standards. The crosswalk document for English and reading is 128 pages long. The crosswalk for technology and science is 12 pages long. So the library media specialist has hundreds of pages of Common Core connections. Beyond that, I want to give you another little piece of research. By 4th grade, there is an expectation that by 4th grade, children will read equal percentages of information and literacy. So you have your nonfiction and your fiction. By 8th grade, it's 45% literature and 55% information. By their senior year in high school, it's only 30% literature and 70% information. And this is for research. This is for this individual exploration, but it moves away from story time to incredible amounts of information that comes through a variety of media, not just the books. So there were educational researchers did a review of the reading test scores of, and I'm almost done, a review of
Thank you.
reading test scores in Colorado grades 3 to 10. And their study concluded a positive, statistically significant relationship between, here it is, wait for it, advanced reading levels and endorsed librarian staffing trends. So that DIRG number that was way up there, you can thank your library media specialist for a lot of that. So these are the people with the expertise and the resources necessary to implement Common Core, and it has to start in elementary school. Final point, if you take them away, then every mission statement in this town will be undermined. The Board of Ed, lifelong learners, the Curriculum and Instruction Office, the 3 elementary schools, where their mission is to provide students with the skills necessary to be successful in a changing global society. They will be independent, strategic readers, problem solvers, and critical thinkers. They will be motivated lifelong learners because of a solid foundation of skills, knowledge, and values through high-quality instruction, practice, and increased expectation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The hour's getting late. We have a few more speakers. If we could please, as succinctly as possible. People need to get home, and you guys need to study. Some of you already left to study. So this lady here, and then Art, and then that lady. Okay. And then yeah, you'll be next. You're after a couple more. You're in line there. As succinctly as possible, please. People are.
Absolutely. Oh, that's odd. Okay. As a high school teacher, I'm going to keep it really short because we all have to get up and be here for 7:05 tomorrow morning. So, my name is Janet Galasso, and I live on, don't advertise too much, but I live on 466 Lower Lane, and I'm renting apartment 2. So I'm one of those in-betweeners. Like, I would work in the district. I live in the district. I just moved here last year. I'm not from Berlin originally. But I grew up in a district where, over the last 20 years in Watertown, they cut the budget, constantly education after education, and they end up being at like 161 out of 169 communities. And now they're just starting to bounce back. And I don't want to see that happen here because I'm really passionate about where we work and where we live and about our students. As an art educator, I just want to speak up about supporting the visual and performing arts. Thank you for the lady who came up in music, When you're an artist, you're always seen as extra, but we see ourselves as essential. There are kids out there who maybe don't connect in the other mediums, but this is their home in our schools, and we want to provide that place for them to live and believe and grow and stay in school. Where arts are known for retention. They're known for improving test scores, so I know that data and test scores are very important to all of us. By doing, through your problem-solving skills, your reasoning skills, your critical thinking skills, you're using all sides of your brain, and so you want to foster those through the arts, through the music, through performing arts, and add that humanitarian aspect to our schools where it's not so rigor. We have our own rigor, don't get me wrong. It's much different than when you guys were in school. We have rubrics, we have all these data points now, and we have new national core standards that we're trying to meet. We're in the process right now of updating our curriculum, and I'm worried about, we're trying to unite K-12 through vertical alignment, and we have a coordinator position that's on the line. We have middle school exploratory positions that are on the line, and if you don't have those in place, our rigor fails when you get to the high school. I guess in that budget cut years ago, you used to have a department head position for the arts, and now that's gone. You start getting rid of the coordinator positions. Who's going to be the one who links us all together? Just last week, we're preparing for the district show at New Britain Museum, and I'm giving out cards to different kids who are getting to the museum. If you've never been, I encourage you to come. It's April 18th at New Britain Museum, 6 to 7:30, but to see what the kids are interacting with and engaging with. Our principals and vice principals get to come out and see it. They could devote on their best art students in the school, and to honor them is a big deal. It's like for those kids who may not get involved in sports, this is like their state championship. They put on their resume, it looks great, and you're talking about economics, you go into the business world, they want to see problem solving, they want to see you take an art class to know that you're well-rounded. They're looking for the well-rounded learner, just like our lady here who, as one of our students have mentioned. So if you get rid of that, if that's on the chopping block when we spend so little on that, it's like for such a little part of that budget, it could be such a big part of that kid. Like I had a kid who barely speaks in class who's like, wow, I'm gonna be in the district show? That's huge. Like, and he's telling all his friends and stuff, and it's a big deal, Again, with the curriculum and the coordinator position I'm worried about, and my colleague is the coordinator, without the vertical alignment, without professional development, how do we bringing the new core standards into our classroom. They're brand new to us, and they're like completely different than we've learned before. I want to make sure I can be that educator for the students to get what they need to be successful. And think about all the jobs that are being created through the arts. How many of you guys have cell phones, right? We live in a media-oriented technology society. I teach digital art, right? You're sitting in a brand new auditorium, new chairs, new building. Somebody designed that, right? The makers markets, we have a new academic developer who's trying to bring a makers market scene to Berlin without the kids, and the kids who are growing up into that, who's gonna fill into that space to be part of it, you know? I could go on and on and on and on, but I think I've got the point. Thank you for hearing me out. I hope you listened, you know, to hear the kids out about this. This is really important to all of us, the hard positions and all that entails. Please support our schools. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Art Powers, 857 Worthington Ridge. I'm not here to blast the council, boards and commissions. I take exception to people who get up here and speak and knock the officers of this town who've been working hard and long to bring industry in here and doing a great job in many, many areas. So I appreciate the work that you've all done. I don't necessarily agree with some of the things you do, but that's politics. But I think it's so unfair to criticize when you don't really know what's going on in this community. We've got many, many people who have volunteered to serve on boards and committees. They spend hours and hours doing it, and they're getting criticized tonight by people who don't really know what's going on. So I appreciate everything you people have done, as I said. I don't always agree, but I think you do a good job. I intended to say more words than I'm going to tonight. I'm a great believer in two real big things in this town. That's education and public service, public safety. That is so important. If we don't have either one, or if we only have one without the other, this town is going nowhere. I believe the public safety, the volunteer firemen, they volunteer their time for this town. And the members of the police department who work hard to keep public safety, they need all the modern technology they can get in this town. People criticize them because they're always, they say, goofing up. They're not. And as modern technology comes around, they have to provide it to keep up with the other towns. So I hope that the police commission and the firemen and so on get what they need. And certainly there's been enough conversation tonight about what the Board of Education does and what the teachers do in this town. I admire you all, and you too are contributing so much to the betterment of this community. There's just one other thing I want to bring up. I'm concerned, we're talking about all these cuts tonight, what is going to happen if we get another cut of a couple of $1 million to our budget? That's what I want to know. How are we going to face that? Will we have more public hearings? Mark, that's what I'm concerned about. Because people are so concerned about the cuts we're going to get now. What is going to happen when the state comes down and say, no, we're not going to cut you $4.5 million, but we're going to cut you $2 million. How much is a mill now? What is it? 2.2 million? Yeah, you know, that 2.2 million for a one mill.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, that's a lot of money, and that's going to hurt us tremendously. So I'm concerned, realistically, this may not be the end. And so I hope, and as I say, I don't know just what you're going to do. Would you have more hearings, or I just?
We want, you know, obviously we have a town council meeting next week, but then we would send the budget next Wednesday to referendum. But my plan would be, or a good point is, if and when the state decides, I think we would definitely have another public hearing and see what we can do with that.
Okay, I thank you, but I am really concerned about that. So thank you very much. I appreciate everything that's been said tonight, and it's been a long evening, so.
Always the perfect gentleman. Thank you very much. Thank you. And then next over.
Hello.
Hi.
Katrina Gafford from 150 Webster Ridge.
Hi.
I know that we're running short on time, so I'll read as quickly as possible. First, I want to acknowledge all of you for the most difficult position that you're in right now. But with this letter, I hope to shed some light on the vital importance of music, athletic, and art programs in our schools, and offer some suggestions on how all three of these areas might be integrated into core academics, effectively streamlining classrooms and possibly saving some money in doing so. The proposed cuts in athletics, music, and the arts are particularly disheartening and troubling to me for several reasons. I attended Berlin schools K through 12. I graduated with a well-rounded quality education. Because of that, I was able to go on to earn my bachelor's degree in art and make my living in the artistic field now. When I was at Berlin High, the music department was strong, visual and performing arts were also solid, and participation was encouraged. Our athletic teams boasted titles such as undefeated and state champions. One of the reasons I chose to move to Berlin, or come back to Berlin rather, is that I want my sons to have the opportunities and the quality education that I received here. Although I have never been an athlete, both of my sons are. By being involved in sports, they have learned to take constructive criticism from their coaches and work hard to apply those lessons. They have forged friendships and learned to work with others to achieve common goals. It has built their confidence. It has taught them to approach everything with a positive attitude, to show grace in defeat and humility in victory. I think we can all agree that these lessons are essential for our children if they are to become healthy, well-rounded adults. Cutting athletic programs specifically at the middle school level will leave our athletes at a loss when they reach the high school level. They will be less experienced, and that could lead to more injuries, both mental and physical. It would lessen the sense of school spirit and pride that I know existed in full force when I attended BHS. And it could decrease the potential for scholarships. Many of my classmates went to college on partial or full athletic scholarships. One of them even got a full ride to Harvard. Athletics can be used as a tool to keep students engaged and teach them real-world applications for geometry and physics. For example, at what angle should you hit a baseball in order to knock it out of the park? What are the other factors that come into play? The speed of the pitch, the arc on the ball, and so on. What concepts in physics govern these things? Now, while my athletic classmates were at practice, I was in rehearsal. Music has always been a huge part of my life, as both my parents were music teachers. Band was my safe haven, the place I felt I belonged. I sincerely doubt that I would have graduated as unscathed as I did without the band and my band directors, Mr. Bob Kelly and Mr. Paul Karam. Incidentally, Mr. Karam was the person that inspired my father to become a music teacher. The importance of music in education is far-reaching. Like sports, it builds confidence, character, discipline, the ability to work closely with others, and how to listen. It also stimulates the brain in a very unique way. It is a medically proven fact that when you play an instrument in a band or orchestra, or sing in a choir, you use more parts of your brain than any other time in your life. Being part of an ensemble involves so much more than simply making sounds. You have to read the music, play your part in time and in tune with the other instruments, control your breathing, watch the conductor for cues. Marching band includes using all of those skills and adds several physical skills as well. Music can be used in core academics such as math, science, physics, and even history. Reading music is basically learning fractions and divisions. Studying how each instrument creates unique sounds would be a helpful tool in learning the physics of sound. Studying the processes of how instruments are made could help a science teacher explain the chemical makeup of various metals and woods. Studying the lives of composers and the times in which they lived could help history come alive. While band was my safe haven, I also had plenty of classmates that felt the same way about the art room. They found they belonged among paints, pottery, and other visual media. Student artwork can often offer insight to the elusive minds of teenagers and toddlers alike. Art can reveal how our kids are seeing and interpreting the world. We may even catch a cry for help from a painting from time to time. It is important that our students have a creative outlet and the opportunity to develop their artistic skills. Without artists, the world would be far less colorful and far less interesting. Artists think outside the box and are able to find new and different solutions to problems that may otherwise go unresolved. Instruction in visual arts promotes high levels of critical thinking. I had a professor that began each class with the statement, "Art reflects history and history reflects art." They go hand in hand. A history teacher could greatly enrich lessons by using the art created during any given time period. For example, students are studying World War II. Studying the art of that time period can give them a richer understanding of what was happening on a global level. Posing questions such as, what ideas was this artist trying to convey with this particular piece? What does it say about what life was like during World War II? How does the artist interpret specific events, and what does that say about the world at large? What lessons can be drawn or have already been learned from this interpretation of the world? All of these questions stemming from one piece of art and developing the absolutely essential skill of critical thinking. In closing, music, art, and athletics are not extras. They are essentials. All three enrich our children's lives and improve the quality of their education. To take these programs away would be doing them a great injustice and disservice. I respectfully ask all of you to please reconfigure the budget so that these vital education programs can continue, and we are able to keep as many of our teachers as possible. And most importantly, to give our children the opportunities and benefits that come with a quality education. They all deserve that. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Madison Meralda, 433 Tollgate Road. I'm here to speak on a first-hand account of someone who has grown up in Berlin. As a student in the Berlin school systems, I've been blessed with the ability to be involved in extracurricular activities as well as in sports. Throughout this time, I have seen tremendous benefits towards my education with this. Due to the sports and extracurricular activities, I have earned the ability to manage my time, make social connections, gain leadership skills, and numerous other benefits. I am currently a cross-country and track captain at the high school. During this time that I have off from my sports, I noticed that my time management skills decrease and then once again increase when the season picks back up. Now I ask you, if I had not been introduced to running in middle school, would I have been able to have the ability to make these connections with both adults and students, learn time management skills, and become the leader that I am for my team? Probably not. I have a sister who is currently a 6th grader at McGee, and I ask you, please give her the opportunity that I had as a child to grow as a student and a person. Please allow children to become involved in their very own communities, because one day, these children will become our doctors, our lawyers, our teachers, and our politicians. Extracurricular activities and sports in all schools in our town positively impact student lives and academic careers and need to continue to hold the value that they do in this town. Thank you.
The lady in the back next. Sorry, it's taking. Yes, you're go ahead.
I have grown up in a family that has gone to Berlin their whole lives. I have 4 older sisters, and they all have done extracurricular activities at Berlin High, like Upbeat and different sports. And that is one of the things that got me excited to want to go to high school and middle school, to get to see all the other extracurricular things that I could do as well. And as well as Sarah was saying about how people look at art as something extra, I think that it's not fair, because everything has art to it, and everything contributes to art. Like science is an art, and writing is an art, and math is an art. You can make anything into an art, and to say that just chorus or band isn't important for the kids at this school, and it helps them with how they see themselves and helps them feel more grounded at school. It's not very fair to the people that do it, and especially for the band and the color guard, to take that away from them if they don't want to do, like, color guard is like, it's a sport, but it's more of like something you can do after school that doesn't take as much time off of the things that you have to do if you are in more of a
higher level classes, and it's just something that is fun to do and as well. And chorus, you can, every class helps with how you see yourself and everything else.
Sorry, it's taking so long to get to you.
No, that's okay. And I didn't intend to speak tonight. My name is Kristen Snyder. I live at 96 Wilkes Pond Road. I have a McGee middle schooler, 6th grade, and a Hubbard elementary school student, who both of which didn't want me to come out tonight because, we finally have a night at home where nobody has to go anywhere. And I explained to my kids that you have to advocate for yourself, and if you don't speak up in this day and age, then you can't be sad for what happens. And my son looked at this letter and said, I can't believe they cut exploratory programs at McGee, and how could they get rid of athletics? Then he understood why I was coming tonight. My daughter looked at this letter and said, they would take away my elementary school? How could they do that to me? They're gonna make me have more students in class every day? That's not fair, and it's not fair, and I just hope that what everybody takes away from tonight is that it's about the students. It's about the quality of education. Our job is to create well-rounded individuals. We're creating students, but we're creating people. And these little people are individuals. They're not a number. You can't fill the classroom with all these kids and expect to create the same individual. I promise you, you will not. We've talked a lot about what people are in this day and age, and we all held up our phones. Well, guess what the kids are learning? This. And we talk about how technology, and I understand we need money for technology, and we absolutely do need money for technology. But the students need to learn how to safely navigate that technology. And they need people there who are supporting them. They need these exploratory programs and the support personnel and these library media specialists. And they need to make sure that they have enough staff to student ratio that they are learning the basics. Do you know what the basics are? Everybody remembers from our generation and above. Eye contact. Hi, my name is Kristen. It's nice to meet you tonight. I teach my child that, both my kids that, but you know what? That needs to be taught at school too. And they need to be having that staff to student ratio so that they are learning eye contact, learning manners, so that they can go out and get a job. And we want our kids, I know I want my kids to go to college. Well, guess what? Colleges aren't just looking at academics anymore. And they're not even just looking at one sport. Colleges now want your kids to be doing more than one activity. They want them versatile. They want them in clubs. They want them in multiple sports. And if not, your kid could be the best at one thing and they're not even gonna look. So if we don't have the right programs that we're offering, then guess what? We're in the wrong town. And I think everybody here wants to be proud to be in Berlin. I know that's why I came to town, and I just hope that everybody can keep that in mind and remember that it is about the student, and all of you look at these decisions that you have to make and think, what if this is my kid? What if this is my grandchild? Because you know what? It is somebody's kid and it is somebody's grandchild. And we want those kids to come out and be our future, and we want it to be a future that we're really proud of. And to be honest, in this day and age, and listening to all this tonight, it's pretty scary. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Hours, yes, ma'am. Yes, come on now. We all get our chance. You should have your chance tonight. Everyone should. You might be the last speaker.
That's
I
fine.
think. Maybe not. Oh, we got one more. Okay. All right, we'll do it.
Wendy Contagoras from 901 Worthington Ridge, and I apologize, I had to break things down on my husband's phone so I could remember. Just a couple of ideas that I had. I'm not sure if I even completely understood all right, but the fund balance, it was mentioned that it was up, I think, to about 13%, so I was thinking that might be an area possibly that funds could come out of there and be applied elsewhere. And since it hasn't had such a high actual use over the years, maybe we could take a little bit more and bring it down to make it maybe 9% to have a little bit more funding to allocate across. I also had some concern a little bit about, there was a mention of the debt coming down in the next few years, but we're still borrowing. So I don't feel like the debt number there was really the true picture of what we're going to be seeing coming in those next couple of years. So I think it might be something to look at. For me, I had a huge memory of years in corporate America, constantly not having raises for years, going back to 2004, 2005. And I heard a lot of people say here tonight that the budget was similar to that time frame for the school. So I was thinking the mill rate increase of that, the top two were salaries in both areas, Board of Ed and for the town. And I was thinking if we took those out, that's 0.75 of the, I think it was 0.8 something increase for the mill rate. So hopefully that would be a little bit more than even what the school needed to help fill that if that was allocated over. Sorry, just trying to peek. And also thinking about, I don't know what the average age is for the school teachers or anything, so I wasn't sure if it would be something to look into and see if anybody would be looking into maybe an earlier retirement, the whole golden handshake, to try to have newer teachers come in at maybe a younger rate. Just trying to look for, I think, and that might even just be it. Oh, and I had one other thing too. The whole Chromebooks, I'm not familiar with it, but if the older kids got new ones, I think the budget up there was for $200,000 for that. So I was thinking maybe the older kids got the new ones. Could we refurbish the older ones and have the younger kids use them and cut the budget there for $100,000? I mean, just looking at some areas, I thought when you were asking earlier you wanted these sort of inputs, so that's kind of the notes that I took. So thanks.
Great. Thank you. Now that's being creative. We appreciate that. Sorry, sir, it's taken so long. Sorry about that.
Oh, I'll be very short.
It's okay. It's okay. You got the floor. Whatever.
Tim Thurston, 100 Sawmill Drive. First of all, I want to say, I wish I had a public speaking course when I was in high school. Okay? I don't know if they do at Berlin, but I should probably take it. My wife and I moved to Berlin about 31 years ago. We've raised 5 children. All of them have gone through Berlin High School. All of them graduated college. All of them took advantage of everything that was available to them at Berlin High School. Sports, drama, and I heard this woman over here, Sarah, talk about Mr. Kelly, the greatest person I ever met. Drama teacher, or drama and music. I love this town. I moved in this town because the people are great here, the town is great. And I heard Mr. Dacey over here say, I lived through the 2004-2005 debacle, okay? And it was your party that was in power, and they didn't listen to these people. What I'm asking you today is to listen to the people, okay? Work with this gentleman, give a little bit, take a little bit, all right? Get it so that we can keep these services together, okay? My 5 children now, 3 of them are living, one of them moved back to Berlin and got married. Another one's gonna stay in Berlin. Another one is living with us. And the one that moved out to Wethersfield and she's saying to me, why are my taxes so much higher than Berlin? That's the point. I said, I gotta come and speak. And I said, I don't want my taxes raised like anybody else, but we have a great town here. Okay? One of the reasons is because of our education, because of our services, but we got to keep that level, and we got to work together. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, folks, going once, going twice. Oh, all right. I didn't get the 3. That's okay. Come on. Yeah. It's okay. It's okay.
All right. Ada Kovaci Kuma, 341 Spruce Brook. I actually am a resident here about 3 years now. My child goes to Hubbard, and Mr. Souza might kill me later. No, actually, my daughter went to private school. I was skeptical about bringing her to public, even though I am a byproduct of a public school, and also I am in the education business. I work for a town where the whole budget for special ed alone is $95 million. So that should put things in perspective. Now, with that said, we are talking about our children here. But at no point, or actually very few individuals like yourself, and I think our friend here from also Hubbard, provided some information and some solutions or some ideas. Whatever happened to maybe creating a committee or creating something completely different from the Board of Ed and or the superintendent and our current education system and also our council? Somebody that can actually, or a group of people that can come in and have those ideas outside of the box and can say, hey, what is everybody else around Connecticut doing? Why are other towns saying, hold on, we can't increase or we can't actually look at our contracts and fulfill every contract, maybe put a stop on raises for the next 2 years, or whatever else. There are other solutions out there that at no point has anybody actually mentioned them tonight, and it's probably not necessarily maybe even the venue. But whatever happened to creating that? Maybe that's something that we need to look at. Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Last call. I see no one else. Okay. Thank everyone, all of you, for coming tonight. We did listen. We did hear you. We have a week left till we have to send our budget to referendum. You obviously have a chance to vote on it on April 25th. Before that vote gets sent, though, before that budget gets sent, I certainly offered the Board of Education. We've already spoke to them, but I offer we have a week. I'm available every night. Mr. Evans is. I'm sure the council will be available. I hope all of you would be. I'm open to anything creative, whatever we think we can do to come to some type of better conclusion than we have tonight. We have a week, so I suggest we use it wisely. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
In favor? Aye.